we can skip that and go to our student presentation. And this evening, we are removing the roles and responsibilities of board members by our attorney, Jessica Ritter, since this was already a really long meeting and we had a pretty packed agenda. We wanted to be mindful of everyone's time, so we'll push that off to a later meeting. So we are going to move into the student presentations from the students at McGee. So I'm going to turn it over to our superintendent to talk a little bit about it.
I'd like to introduce Principal Sal Urso will introduce our library media specialist as well as some students.
All right, thank you, everybody. So as you know, reading is a very, very important skill that those who are lucky enough to be able to do it well have huge opportunities. So our staff, our classroom staff, works really hard on some of the close reading strategies that you would in a classroom, you know, what you do before reading, during reading, after reading. And in addition to that, our library staff work really hard to not only support that, but part of reading is being inspired to read. And so today you're going to have a chance to hear from our students and Mrs. Turgeon, our library media specialist, about what it is that they do to make sure that students want to have a book in their hand or text in front of them. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Mrs. Turgeon. You have to talk.
I know, I told them they do too. Come on up. Hi, thank you, Mr. Urso. My name is Lisa Turgeon. I am the library media specialist at McGee. I've actually only been here since November. I started at the end of November. I served as the library media specialist at Griswold School for 5 years before that. When I started in November, I actually got to start with a new library para. So together we sat down and decided what we really wanted to focus on for the year. And what we decided is we wanted to build a community of readers. And we wanted that community of readers to have social interaction around books. And so the first thing we did was we talked to our classroom teachers to find out what kind of readers we had at McGee and what would inspire the kids to read. And we realized we needed to have a lot of fun in the library. So we wanted to expose them to new genres. We wanted to expose them to new authors. So we came up with a bunch of challenges that we run monthly or bi-monthly in the library. Some of them are like blind date with a book, or reading a biography about a famous woman for Women's History Month. And what I did was I brought some students with me, because they speak better than I do, and they're going to tell you about some of the challenges that we've had and what they've experienced. And we have some pictures behind them that are going to play that will show you what's going on in the library. I'm going to start off with Jenna and Abby.
Hello, my name is Abigail Amani, and I'm an 8th grade student at McGee.
Hello, my name is Jenna Babidi. I'm also an 8th grader at McGee. One of the events that the library held at the library was called Blind Date with a Book. At this event, lots of different types of books were put into gift bags so we couldn't see which book was in it. But those gift bags had descriptions explaining what the book was like, and we got to choose one book at a time.
I thought this was a great opportunity to explore different types and genres of books. This gave students, including myself, a chance to read books that we typically wouldn't read. Also, it was fun to read lots of books and have the chance to win a prize.
The prize for Blind Date with a Book was a Dunkin' Donuts gift card and a stuffed animal monkey. In my experience, my first book was called Annex, then I got The Final Six, and then I got Dairy Queen. I love these books. If I had seen the cover, and I'm not sure if I would have picked them. This event encouraged me to read in my free time, and the book Final Six inspired me to read the second book in the series too.
I read around 7 books because I love reading and wanted to win the prize. I read different genres of books. One of them was a mystery book, another book was a historical fiction book, and finally another one was a realistic fiction book. I'm very grateful that this event happened because I was able to read so many amazing books which I might have not read before. This also encouraged me to read in my free time.
Overall, this was a great experience and we would definitely want to do it again. Next up is the event in the library ran in February.
Hi, my name is Meryl Sasson Martin. I'm a 6th grade student at McGee who sometimes has a hard time picking out a book that I want to read. Having events in the library really helps me find a book. My favorite event was the Black History Month Challenge. We had to read a book written by a black author, then tell a library media staff about the book we read. 3 books were secretly chosen to be the golden books by Miss Turgeon. Whoever read one of those 3 golden books and told the library media staff what it was about won a Starbucks gift card. I was one of those people who got a gift card. I read From the Desk of Zoe Washington by Janae Marks. I really enjoyed it. I love these events because they are like challenges. They really help students who do not like to read find a book that they will end up liking. A lot of people that I've talked to love these challenges, and it really made some of my friends who don't like reading at all find a book that they liked. When this challenge was over, they ran a reading event for March.
Hello, my name is Jordan.
Hello, my name is Sophia, and we are 6th grade students. We are here tonight to share with you the event our library held for Women's History Month.
Women's History Month takes place in March. The library staff set up 2 fun displays. The first was fiction stories with strong female leads. The second was reading biographies about famous women. My favorite was reading the biographies. I think I read about 7 to 8 biographies during the event. But reading the biographies was not all we had to do. After we finished, we had to fill out a questionnaire asking 3 questions about the biography. The questionnaire asked us for 3 facts: your favorite early life fact, your favorite middle life fact, and the most interesting thing we learned. We had to hand in our sheet, and we were entered to win a gift card.
But every time we read a biography, we were able to pick out a small prize. I found this fun because it gave me a reason to read the book, and it encouraged me to read biographies. This genre is not one I normally read. The library helped find a good book and were very nice. By completing this challenge, we learned about the people that did something to change the world. My personal favorite was Malala Yousafzai. Her bravery was inspiring.
And my personal favorite was Dolly Parton. She was my favorite because I like her music and I found it interesting to read about her. Thank you for having us tonight. Up next is something we both look forward to in 7th grade.
Hello, my name is Gianna Pethigal.
And I'm Kendall Levesque, and we are 7th graders. This year, our ELA teachers made a reservation with the library for a book tasting. A book tasting is when the library is turned into a restaurant. Ours was named the Spartan Cafe. It had tablecloths, flowers, a hostess station, and even menus. Here we have some menus to show you. But this restaurant did not serve food, it served books.
The library staff dressed up as waitresses and seated us at one of the 6 tables. Each table had a different book genre, and we were able to taste 2 books. To taste them, we just read a few pages to see what they were about. Then we got to judge the books like food critics. We recorded our thoughts and wrote down the titles of the books that we would like to check out. My favorite genre is horror because it is thrilling and makes me feel like I'm on my toes.
My favorite genre was historical fiction because it shares facts about the story while also sharing some interesting fictional facts.
This was a really fun way to experience new books and find out more about ourselves as readers and what books we might like to read. Next up is Mrs. Turgeon talking about this month's April showers.
So for our final one for this month, we are doing a poetry contest with the kids, but we wanted to put a little different spin on it. So what we're doing is the kids have to read a novel in verse. If you've ever read one or haven't read one, it is an entire book written in a poem that tells one story. So the kids have to read a novel in verse. When they're finished, they have to write a 6-word poem and turn it into the library staff. And we're using them to advertise the books that are in the library. I was uncertain how this was going to go. We rolled it out right after April break, and on the first day, we had 11 novels in verse checked off right off the shelf. It went really quickly, and we have poems that are coming in that we're using to advertise because the kids are really getting involved in the activities that are happening in the library. What's a little different in middle school than is in elementary school is that library isn't necessarily a class. So they don't come in and we don't force them to check out books. They are coming in on their own, and it was so exciting to see the number of kids that are pouring in the library just to take part in one of these activities. In May, we're going to roll out summer reading and what we're going to do for our summer reading kickoff, and I'm just excited to see where the library is going to go from here. So I thank Mr. Urso for letting us come down and talk to you and showcase our library, and I thank you for listening. And I really invite you to come into any of our school libraries because all of the school libraries are doing some amazing things, and I encourage you to come in and see what we're doing.
initiatives and experiences. I think it sounds really exciting and makes it fun. Do any board members have anything they would like to either share or ask the students about?
I was just going to say, anything that can keep you incentivized to continue to read. When you're young, it's sort of required when you're in school, but as you get older, when you continue to do it, it's a wonderful hobby. There's so many great books to just continue reading, and I think it's great that you guys are getting it now, and you'll hopefully have it forever. So, thank you for sharing.
Yes?
If I could just make a comment about Mrs. Turgeon. I don't want to embarrass you, but Mrs. Turgeon started as a paraprofessional in our McGee Media Center years ago. She was phenomenal as a paraprofessional, went back to school to get her library media certification, and then took the position at Griswold, and then came back to McGee, which I know there was a love there when you were at McGee. And you can see the work that you're doing and what's going on with the students, the engagement, and making it fun to read and to select text. So thank you so much, and I hope you don't mind me saying that, Lisa. Thank you.
And I do want to say, I think you guys just did a phenomenal job presenting, standing up there with all your parents, with the board. You did a really great job, and thank you for passing out the menu. I wrote a book down that seemed interesting, so. All right, well, if no one else has anything to share. The cookies right up there. You guys can grab some cookies. You don't have to stay if you do not want to. Don't feel obligated. So we'll just give it a second before we move to our next agenda item so you guys can get some cookies and decide if you want to stay or go home. Thank you. Great job. Move a little along shortly. Whenever you guys are. All right, so we are going to move over to committee report, correspondence report. Actually, is Liz Brown from CABE here? Did she arrive? No? Okay. Well, if we notice she does. Okay, committee reports. So, report of board members. Do any board members have anything that they would like to report about anything that they've attended or, anything in general since our last meeting?
I hosted and attended. We had a Willard movie night, which was the best attended, and I think it just worked out perfect timing. Mr. Cheverini was there, so I thought it was an awesome opportunity for him to get to meet and introduce himself to the families, and he stayed there from beginning to end, even helped me with technology, which was fantastic. So, yep, and I'm hoping to attend the art show on Wednesday because I look forward to that each year.
That's about it.
Tell us about it.
Tell us how.
a lot of fun. I'm so glad we do that. Or the Upbeat does it with the robotics. It was so much fun. It was so good too. So good. So good. There was a pizza I tried I never heard of, and it's I enjoyed it. It was very good. There was the Big Mac.
Ian and others that were there. And then last night, the Mr. BHS was the big hit.
So I too attended Mr. BHS. Just even though I didn't know the candidates as well, but last night it was a lot of fun. My son was one of the participants. I came in third. He sang I am just a Ken or whatever from Barbie. And I thought he rocked it, but I am biased, so. He wore a pink suit and everything.
Congratulations. You must be a proud dad.
I am indeed.
Anyone else?
I watched it through videos while I was in the car. I kept getting videos of it, but I hope Mr. Pivers did a good job as an MC as well, as he
really
typically
He's
does.
fun.
Yes.
All right. Moving on to the report of our student representatives. So we will turn over to Anusha and Ian.
So since then, on March 13th, the distinguished members of the Rho Kappa National Honor Society, were celebrated during their induction ceremony. Among the honored students were those who exemplify excellence in the social studies field. Their dedication to scholarship and service has earned them a place in this esteemed society. Congratulations to all the newly inducted members on this significant achievement. Members of the AP United States Government and Politics class took a trip to Washington, D.C. through the Close Up program. This program promotes civic engagement by bringing together students from across the country to learn how the policy process works in Congress. They conclude their student activities with a mock Congress. Students were able to meet with Senator Blumenthal, as well as staffers from Congressman Larson's office, to ask questions to better understand how our government works.
And then the BHS broadcast team recently won an award from the Mascot Media Broadcast Awards. This award, which was for the event of the year, demonstrates the hard work Mr. Smith and his team contribute to showcase the best of our district. Thank you to everyone who aids in sharing the exceptional talents and skill of Berlin students and staff.
And then, on March 27th, the Upbeat and Berlin First Robotics hosted the annual Slice of Berlin Pizza Awards at BHS. This is a large event that combines all the many local pizza restaurants in town to try and find the best pizza. This year, the Av won for Best Cheese Pizza and won overall, and Sliceworks won for Best Topping. All proceeds will directly benefit Upbeat and First Robotics. And then, on April 3rd, the BHS Concert Band performed their annual spring concert with the theme this year being Deus Ex Musica, which translates to music from the machine. Combining synth, backtracks, and unique instrument setups, the concert band produced something unique and forward-thinking under the direction of Mr. Dresko.
And then Berlin High School hosted the Harlem Tricksters in March, where Berlin's finest went up against the amazing basketball skills of the Tricksters. It was a fun night for all. And then the Berlin First Robotics team attended a 3-day convention for districts in Springfield, Massachusetts. Not only is the robotics team 31 years old, but this is the 3rd time in a row the team has made it to districts. According to members of the team, they placed 13th out of 48 in the preliminary round, but unfortunately dropped to 35th after damage to their robot circuits. Their progression not only showcases the immense talent of the team, but also the dedication of Mr. Ito and Mr. Latendry as directors.
Every year, 2 BHS seniors are awarded for exceptional talent in 2 categories of the arts, visual arts and performing arts. This year, Madeline Lazar won the CAS Award for Visual Arts for her immense success in photography, and Glenn Fern won the CAS Award for Performing Arts for his multi-talented instrument and vocal skills. Congratulations to both Maddie and Glenn. And then on April 16th, the BHS boys baseball team traveled to Duncan Park. There, they not only competed against Enfield, but also got the chance to play a game in the state-of-the-art facility. At the end of the game, Berlin was eventually named winner.
This upcoming Thursday, the POC Student Union at BHS will be hosting Culture Day. This is an event celebrated all day in which students and staff are invited to bring homemade dishes from their cultures. Then, BHS members can learn more about these respective cultures not only through food, but also through music and conversation. We would like to thank Spanish teacher Miss Quintero for spearheading this immensely engaging celebration. And then on April 1st, the Berlin girls lacrosse team won against Newington with a final score of 13-12. Not only is this their #1 rival, but this win also shows the constant dedication and commitment to the team from all members.
And then this past Saturday, the junior prom took place at the AquaTurf, providing students with a memorable evening filled with cherished moments with friends. Thank you to all of the junior class advisors, as well as their advisors, Ms. Adams, Mr. Mayo, and everyone else involved in making this joyful event possible. And then on March 11th, students attended a career fair at BHS to learn more about specific career paths and what they entail. Ms. Hemming invited a plethora of professionals from a variety of fields. Thank you to Ms. Hemming, our admin team, and the BHS custodians for helping develop a widely successful event.
And finally, we would like to bring to your attention the Class of 2025 fundraiser that will be taking place at Hop House on April 24th, as well as the successful fundraiser that occurred on April 3rd for the Class of 2027. All the proceeds from each event go to benefit both classes, primarily during their junior and senior years, as many traditional events take place, such as the hallway decorating competition and prom.
And that's all we have for tonight. So, thank you.
Thank you so much. You guys do an excellent job with that report, and I know we look forward to it every month. Okay, committee reports. Peter, would you like to share about the last two F&O committees meetings?
At the last F&O committee meetings, we discussed the potential cuts to the budget, and we'll also be discussing that later today, as well as a policy regarding qualified tuition for teachers within the district for if they're non-residents.
Thank you. Did the communication committee meet since the last
I don't think so.
meeting?
I know we're meeting.
You have one coming up, okay.
Yeah.
And then the curriculum? You have not, okay. Okay, great. We do not have a CREC report this evening, and correspondence to the board.
Yes, I have one correspondence to the board. Just wanted to thank all of you, the members of the board, for their district who reached out after my mother's passing. The flowers that were sent were first received after her passing and meant a lot to my family and myself. I also received a card from Brian, HR team, and other members of the district, and wanted to extend my sincere thank you and consideration. My mother was a teacher for over 30 years, and her influence in the reason I gravitated towards this position, working in the school and around children. Please extend my gratitude to members of Central Office and the BUA. Nick Smith.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Nick. And I know that the board has received correspondence regarding the therapy dog, and as of this evening, we had 22 in favor of the dog and 7 opposed. I know that the board was receiving them, but I just wanted to bring the numbers to everyone's attention. We don't read them during the meeting, but it's good for us to receive them and read them and see them. And since that last count, I believe that we received one additional this evening, probably within an hour before we came here. And then I know Brian also received another letter, so I believe it was 24 in favor and 7 opposed at that point, counting the hard copy of the letter Brian received. We will be talking about that in our meeting, but I just wanted to acknowledge that. Okay, so we are going to move on to audience of citizens. We do have this sign-up sheet, so if you do come approach the board, we just ask that you write down your name and your address. It's just going to be easier for our minutes. So members of the Berlin community are encouraged to share their thoughts with the Board of Education and are invited to do so during this part of the meeting. When appropriate, members of the Board of Education or administration may respond to comments. However, it is not a back and forth. In consideration of those in attendance and in an effort to proceed in a timely manner, follow-up discussion may need to take place outside the meeting setting. You may receive follow-up or just watch the rest of the meeting if you decide not to stay after. Residents speaking during this time will be limited to 3 minutes. We have the timer, but just know that if we are not responding, it's not, because we don't want to. It's the portion of the meeting. So if anyone would like to approach the board, feel free to do so. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. I am not going to use the microphone because Ryder has a little bit of fear of the elevated sound. First, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Karen Pagliaro. I've been a resident of Berlin for just about 38 years. I live on Still Meadow Lane, and I did sign. So the reason I'm in here tonight is I want to share with you my insights into animal-assisted therapy. For the past 6 years, my registered pet therapy dog, Ryder, and I have made numerous visits to hospitals, schools, nursing homes, and universities. The benefits of animal-assisted pet therapy are far-reaching and can make a true difference in both adults and children. While the physical benefits can include lowered blood pressure, increased cardiovascular health, decrease in physical pain, increased relaxation, and lowered breathing rates for those with anxiety, the emotional benefits really seem to, in my opinion, make the big difference. And they include, and what I've also seen when I've made pet therapy visits, are improvement in mood, assistance with developing social skills, decrease in depression and anxiety, increased mental stimulation, immediate emotional boost. And what I'd like to say too, what happens when a child, an adult, has an interaction with a pet therapy animal, there's an increase in serotonin, prolactin, and oxytocin, all hormones that generate relaxation and are stress-reducing response. Also, children with neurological differences, such as autism, may often perform better in their language and social skills. Having a full-time pet therapy dog at Griswold School would really enable children, more children, to be able to interact with a therapy dog. And also, there would be more of an immediate response when a child is in crisis. During my 6 years with animal-assisted pet therapy, I have never, not once, had any problem with an allergic reaction. Never. The other thing I'd like to share in conclusion is just a short story about what happened with one child who's in the BLAST program at Willard. So when this child first came in to see Ryder, he was afraid of him. He wouldn't approach him, he wouldn't pet him. Eventually, a couple weeks later, he reached out and he touched him. And then everything morphed into something new. He started kissing him, hugging him, using him as a pillow, and he smiled. Now this child, by the way, is nonverbal. Eventually, after all of the visits with Ryder, he then, as he was leaving, said, "Bye-bye, puppy." This child who's nonverbal spoke. This dog can make every moment matter for children, and that's why Griswold should get this animal-assisted therapy in the school. I thank you for my time. I know I have 29 seconds, and it really makes a huge difference. Unfortunately, because of the microphones, Ryder is nervous, and one of the things as a pet partner therapy dog is we have to be in tune with their reactions. And so I unfortunately am going to leave because I want to be kind to my dog. So thank you very much.
All right. Oh, okay. Yeah, we could pass it around as well.
I'm loud enough that microphone because I think my son could on Bittersweet. But I'm Ashley Disney. This is my daughter Devin, and Mrs. Primo's her teacher. We didn't plan this. We just happened to find each other outside.
Your name, your address.
Oh, 26 Bittersweet Lane. Devin and I and my son Tristan, who's at McGee, are actually transplants to Berlin, which has been an amazing transition. I know you all read our letter, but essentially, you know, they lost their father. He was a fireman in New Britain. It was pretty traumatic, and we came to Berlin. My son really connected with Mrs. Burrill, but Devin is, sorry to talk about you like you're not here, Dev, but not one that wants to share her emotions. She doesn't want to talk to me about how she's feeling. She doesn't want to talk to anybody else. She doesn't want to tell her friends. She wants to keep it all inside. If she's crying, she wants to run away from me and hide. So she started to see Ryder, and it really was the highlight of her day. She would come home. She would tell me all about her visit with Ryder. She was so happy. It was so amazing to see the joy, you know, back in her face. To add another layer, I'm actually a mental health nurse practitioner. So I worked with adolescents for the last 5 years, and I just recently transitioned to adults. And I know for a fact, and I could, you know, spit research articles and regurgitate all of that to you, but it's pretty well known that animal therapy has such an amazing benefit to all aspects of, you know, patients and students. And I think the hardest part was seeing Devin be so upset when Ryder wasn't there that day, because that was really the highlight of her week. And I think if she had the opportunity to see Ryder when she went through, which I told her we wouldn't discuss, something recently that was pretty significant, I know it would have really made her day, because she came home and the first thing she did was hug our dog. So, you know, I hope more people can be touched by a therapy dog, and just having somebody in the school would be so beneficial. Thank you.
Dawn Primo, 233 Elwood Road. Oh, sorry.
You could have told me.
Is this on? Okay. Dawn Primo, 233 Elwood Road in Berlin. I'm a teacher at Griswold School, and as Ashley mentioned, Devin is in my class, as well as other students that do see the therapy dog Ryder during this time. As we know, school can be very stressful for both teachers and for students, and having this opportunity provides us a unique opportunity to spend time with Ryder. And these furry friends of ours provide us with unconditional love, with acceptance and non-judgmental companionship, which especially benefits children who are struggling with loneliness, depression, or behavioral issues. Interacting with the dog, and as Mary had said earlier, Karen rather, had said earlier, that they also provide us with that sense of responsibility, as well as picking up those good hormones that we all would love to have. Some of our other students in the classroom have spent time with Ryder, and as Ashley said, they get very disappointed when it happens to be a day that Ryder can't come or is not feeling well himself. But one student had said to me, just as the opportunity of hugging the dog just relaxes him and sets him in a tone to be able to focus and pay attention a little bit more. Granted, we would love to have Ryder there more often, and this is why we hope to have a therapy dog at our school regularly, so that they can be seen by all students, not just the select few that have gone through some problems that we're aware of. So I urge you to approve the full-time therapy dog at Griswold to provide the students with support, comfort, and companionship they need, both inside the classroom as well as outside. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, right behind you.
Okay, you want me to go first? Huh. Sure. I have no problem speaking up. My name is Melinda Kelleher, 1211 High Road. Both of my daughters are students at Griswold. Carmela is my oldest, is in 4th grade. Neela is my youngest, is in 1st grade. They've always been really excited to go to school. They love going to school. They love their teachers. They love their staff. Unfortunately, recently, Carmela began having some difficulties that severely impacted her ability to go to school and stay at school. She experienced a traumatic event in February at school that had me picking her up and keeping her home for 2 days. This event left her with extreme anxiety. She was unable to sleep, to eat. It was affecting both
it was affecting her both physically and mentally. Mornings were a struggle, to say the least, just to get her out of bed. I was at a loss for how to help my daughter, so I reached out to the school for support, and that's when I spoke to Ms. Kalman, the school social worker, along with Mr. Campbell, Ms. Quinn, and her teacher, Ms. Dresco. We put together some plans to help Carmela, and one of those plans included her going to see Ryder twice a week. You know, I don't need to stand up here and tell you how much therapy dogs are beneficial, but I can say that it quickly became one of Carmela's favorite parts of her week. She, you know, he helped her gain her confidence back. He eased her anxiety and improved her mood when she was having a bad day. The only downside to Ryder is that he's not there more often. She only gets to see him twice a day, and it's a very limited amount of time. You know, she still has her moments, and she's working on developing some skills. She's eating again, sleeping better, overall return to her happy self, and having a therapy dog at the school would be a blessing to her as well as other students. I know that one of the fears of parents is students with allergies, and they, you know, they're unsure of how how it's gonna affect them at school. My youngest actually has allergies to dogs as well, and I still think it would be beneficial for her, just because even just seeing the dog and, you know, how cute he is, and little kids, you know, that's what they're looking at, and she loves seeing him in the school. So even though she can't necessarily see him and touch him and pet him, just seeing him makes her happy throughout the day as well. So for me, the massive list of benefits outweighs any of the negatives, because I've seen the effect it's had on my daughter just in the short time she's been able to visit with him. And I know Carmela has some things that she wants to say about Ryder too. Go ahead. Thank you.
My name is Carmela, and Carmela Kelleher. My name is Carmela Kelleher, and I live at 1211 High Road. Here are my reasons why Ryder helps me so much. Sometimes there's a lot going on, and visiting Ryder helps give me a brain break. He also gives me something to look forward to at school. His unconditional love helps me on the days that I'm really missing my mom and dad. Even though I'd really miss Ryder, I think it is a good idea to get a permanent therapy dog at our school.
Thank you. Thank you for being great. Right. Now you can go. All right.
Hi, I'm Andrea Diarina, and I live at 24 Georgini Drive. I am currently in 5th grade, and I do not see our therapy dog Ryder. A lot of my friends and other students don't see Ryder either. If we had the therapy dog for a longer time, it would allow any or all students to see the therapy dog. Take me, for example. Sometimes I get stressed and frustrated, like we all do. If I could see Ryder, then it would calm me down and help me focus, which would also help me do my best schoolwork. More time with Ryder would also be better, because spending time with therapy dogs help more than using other strategies like taking a walk. When I take a walk, I think about why I'm stressed or why I'm frustrated. But with Ryder, I'll focus on the dog and and not why I'm with the dog.
Thank you. Did you write your name down?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Hi, my name is Lila Shackford, 32 McGee Lane. I am 11 years old, 5th grade student at Griswold School. Raise your hand if you have a dog at home. Why do you have the dog?
I love that.
Does your dog bring you joy? After a long day at work, you look forward to snuggling with your dog. Why? Because it makes you feel good, makes you feel loved. Over the last 3 months, I have been introduced to Ryder, our therapy dog at school. I look forward to seeing him every Wednesday. I have been hit with a situation at home with my dad's health, and I am scared, nervous, and I have anxiety. It has been so difficult at times to pay attention in class with all my heavy feelings. Since I have been seeing Ryder, I feel like I have an easier time coping with all of my emotions and anxieties. Ryder helps me feel relaxed, calm, and extra loved. I am so grateful that Ryder is available to see me every Wednesday, but I would love if he was able every day. One of my favorite things to do with him is giving him treats and petting him. He is so soft. I would want other students to have the same opportunity to have Ryder too. It would benefit the Griswold community to have Ryder as a full-time employee as a therapy dog. Thank you for taking the time listening to me speaking on Ryder's behalf to permanent employee at Griswold School.
Doing. Before my 3 minutes starts, indulge me for 1 second. My name is Jeff Pager. I live at 153 Dale Drive. Before I start, I would like to extend to the board that Mr. Campbell at Griswold and Mrs. Quinn both have been extremely excellent in situation with my son in particular, but just in general. They have been phenomenal. Mr. Campbell is awesome, along with Mrs. Quinn. So I just wanted to pass that along so everybody hears it. I stand here today to speak in favor of the service dog for Griswold School. My son Jackson, a 5th grader currently at Griswold, has been receiving the benefits of the weekly visits by the current therapy dog since kindergarten, and I can tell you without a doubt that it has benefited him far beyond what we could have imagined. Jackson is a very bright and a kind little boy who has both autism and ADHD. The presence of the dog for kids with special needs can have a profound impact, not only emotionally, but also on their academics. They can help to calm kids if they have panic attacks. They can provide an overall comfort and support for their emotions and even help with specific tasks. For students with special needs, therapy dogs have been shown to help improve social, emotional, and cognitive skills in these children. They can be used as part of educational activities, as a look forward to visit, or maybe as a friend to deliver some big hugs to. A study from 2019 that I found called Pets in the Classroom showed that utilization of classroom pets in 3rd and 4th grade in U.S. classrooms appears to hold significant benefits for children's social, behavioral, and academic development, and that findings show that the presence of pets in the classroom may increase social skills and competence for children in the 3rd and 4th grades and additionally be effective in decreasing select problem behaviors in the classroom. The therapy dog at Griswold has done all of these things for my son. It has taught him empathy and caring, which he has been able to carry over into his everyday life, at home and at school. Having both autism and ADHD brings with it the side effects of also having strong instances of anxiety. But Jack has learned through this sessions with Ryder how to work through some of those instances of extreme emotion. Ryder has given my son a friend who loves him for who he is. When asked about Ryder, Jackson just smiles at you, and he will tell you from his heart that Ryder makes him feel happy and calm, that his favorite part of the week is when it's his turn to get snuggles. It fills my heart with so much joy to know that my son's school can offer him something that many other schools could not or do not. I know having a dog in the school full-time may raise some flags, red flags for parents who are concerned about their children's physical safety, as well as any concerns regarding allergies. I can assure you as a parent that has a child who has been receiving these services for the past 6 years, that Griswold School has done everything necessary to ensure that all individuals within the school are safe and well taken care of. They have gone through every measure to ensure that dander and hair can be easily controlled through regular bathing and brushing. They are keeping any allergic children outside of the area where the dog would normally be located as best it can be possible, and that they are providing other accommodations that would be reasonable to protect all children, but also allow access to this valuable resource. The benefits of this amazing resource is an asset to the school. I am proud to be a parent of a child that benefited from Ryder, and I am pleased that this valuable resource will be able to benefit even more children within the school. I'm just about done. In a world where things have become more challenging for children in their emotional state, especially after COVID, I know that the right move to have a full-time therapy dog at Griswold is the right move for the children. I'm so passionate about the benefits of this program that I am planning to donate $500 this summer to go towards any food and care for the dog and offset any other associated costs if it indeed moves forward. Please vote in favor of continued benefit for the years to come. Thank you.
Okay, who else? Nikki's coming up.
Microphone. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Anyways.
You're good. Have a seat.
I don't know why I did that.
Yes. Go ahead, and you gotta give your name and your address. Go ahead.
Am I first?
Just say Evelyn Sambitsky.
State your name and your address.
Hi, my name is Evelyn Sambitsky. What the heck is wrong with this? 947. My address is 947 Chamberlain Highway. Me and Mom are gonna show you why we should have a full-time therapy dog at my school. I have not 1, not 2, but 3 dogs. I miss them once I go to school. My dogs help me calm down, so it would be great if there was a full-time therapy dog at my school. When I feel angry or sad, petting dogs help me. And obviously, yeah, there you go.
Nikki Sambitsky, 947 Chamberlain Highway, Berlin. Evelyn also sees Ryder. I am speaking tonight in support of the service dog for Griswold Elementary. As a parent of a child with autism and mood dysregulation disorder, we know and understand the importance of therapy dogs. My daughter has taken advantage of the part-time therapy dogs at this school and has benefited greatly from them. She was able to better calm down and regulate her moods when she was in severe emotional distress. She was excited to come to school and stay in school, and she was able to function more on an even level after spending some time being comforted with the therapy dogs. She is currently struggling with big emotions and behaviors on a daily basis due to her autism and mood dysregulation disorder. Every single day is a massive struggle for our family as we navigate through this with her. This is greatly impacting her studies and her relationships with her classmates and friends. Some of these behaviors could be soothed and curtailed if there was a full-time therapy dog in the school that could help her calm down and de-escalate in times of emotional distress. I do understand that there have been a small number of parents writing in against having the dog at school. As someone whose child has great success with therapy dogs, it would be a huge benefit for her and for other children like her to have a full-time therapy dog at Griswold. I would bet my last dollar that the amount of kids who desperately need a full-time therapy dog greatly outnumbers the amount of parents who are sending in letters of complaint. In this situation, it makes sense to take into consideration the dire needs of the many over the complaints of a few. I see a wonderful change in my daughter's actions and moods on the days when she is with the therapy dog. The days seem easier for her, and she's able to focus better and stay on task at school. As a parent of a child with special needs, I wonder what life would be like if almost every single day could be like that. And having a full-time therapy dog at this school would certainly help make that possible. Thank you.
Hey.
High Road. I'm a teacher at Berlin long before I was a resident in town. My husband and I decided to move to this town because I knew not only my children's educational needs, but also their social and emotional needs would be met. As a parent with 2 children at Griswold School that both see the therapy dog and have used this as a successful tool in managing their anxiety and emotional regulation, I feel that a full-time therapy dog will continue to be a great asset, not only for the 80 students that Ryder sees now, but 500 students could potentially participate in seeing Ryder. When I asked my 6-year-old daughter if she would like to have a dog in school full-time, she said, "I'm gonna cross my fingers that that comes true." My 10-year-old son stated, "When I know that the therapy dog is going to be in school, I'm more excited to go to school. I'm ready to learn after seeing Ryder." As a teacher in this school, I know that a full-time dog will be used with specific intention and everyone's safety taken into consideration. I have firsthand experience of seeing how the therapy dog can transform a student's emotional state. Students that were struggling to complete an assignment have left in the middle and come back after seeing the dog more willing to tackle difficult tasks with a positive demeanor.
I know that a full-time therapy dog can be used as a tool to help increase school attendance, children's confidence, social skills, and reduce stress and anxiety. You've seen here tonight that Ryder can build confidence in students being able to stand in front of you and give speeches, create speeches, and state their opinions and concerns, and that's all because of the therapy dog. I thank you for your time and consideration, and also your commitment to Berlin Public Schools.
Did you sign in? Okay. Would anyone else like to approach the board?
My name is Jenny Simatowski. I'm at 300 Carriage Drive, Berlin. This is my first time attending Board of Ed meeting, so I'm a little bit nervous. So my student who's currently attending Griswold Elementary School, and I'm here basically advocating and hoping that a full-time therapy dog will be approved for Griswold Elementary School. I would like to share the positive effects on my student whenever he visits Ryder, the therapy dog. As many of you already know Ryder, he is currently a part-time therapy dog who visits school, and each time when he visits, not only he brings joy to the student, but also benefit the staffs. There's just so many positive benefits that a therapy dog can bring to the table. Studies have shown that therapy dog not only help reducing stress and anxiety, but also improvement on students' overall attitude towards school, which my son, Marcus. Students are able to find companionship to the dog. In ways, this is similar to having a classroom pet as I was growing up. It facilitated students learning lesson in responsibility, respect, and empathy. My son, who is a student at Griswold Elementary School, get to visit Ryder, the therapy dog, whenever he gets to visit. He would tell me all about the visit, and this is coming from a kid who normally tells me he learned nothing from school. By having a full-time therapy dog, I believe that it would help my son and other students in many different ways. Currently, my son has a tough time transitioning back to school from a long weekend or a break. He is shy at first and has a hard time expressing his feeling at times. But having a full-time therapy dog may also help him adjust or readjust to the unfamiliar situations and get him to open up. So yes, please do approve having a full-time therapy dog at Griswold. Thank you.
Hi, Dawn Steimer, 85 Whispering Brook Road. Sorry, I'm completely unprepared, so I just figured I'd talk from my heart. I am a kindergarten para at Griswold, and I have the distinct privilege of getting to take kindergarten students to see Ryder. Some of them have stories that would break your heart. And when they go in to see Ryder, everything changes. You can see their shoulders come down. Their hearts are not as heavy. They are volcanoes normally, and now they're at peace. And it's amazing to see. And I can tell you that some of the teachers and paras and staff at Griswold also have heavy hearts, and sometimes it's good to stop in to see Ryder and get that moment of calm, just like when you go home and pet your dog and get that unconditional love. Kids, during that day that Ryder is there, we have a lot of students that see Ryder, and Ryder's only there once a week. So they're in big groups, and you still see that positive moment with the dog where they all get to just relax and feel just happy, no problems in the world, not knowing how to deal with their emotions. Some of them have had COVID issues, as we all have, but they're little and they don't know how to deal with these things. And when you have a warm animal, dog to hug, it just makes you feel so much better. I've seen nothing but positive feelings and emotions and things from Ryder, from students and staff. So I hope that you all will definitely vote yes to have a full-time therapy dog. It's amazing. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to approach the board? Okay. Thank you, everyone, for coming out this evening. We have one agenda item before we get into our motion and our discussion on this. So if you do want to stick around, just know that we have a motion for our consent agenda, and then we'll get into the next part. Okay, so that concludes audience of citizens. Moving on to the next agenda item, consent agenda. Do we have a motion for consideration?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Do we have a second? So the motion by Adam, the second by Gina. Okay, any discussion on the consent agenda? Hearing none, we can move to a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The vote carries 8-0. All right, moving on to new business. The facility therapy dog at Mary Griswold School. So at our March 11th, 2024 board meeting, Principal Jonathan Campbell and Linda Holian provided a presentation on the social emotional benefits a facility therapy dog would have for the students and staff. And the board members asked questions, and then you all have the opportunity to send me questions. I compiled those, I provided them to the superintendent, and in the superintendent's update, we received the answers to the questions. So if approved this evening, a policy will be prepared and brought forth for first reading at the May board meeting. It doesn't make sense to bring a policy first, first approve this, and then we can put the policy in place and ensure that the policy, has, what we, as a board feel is most important. I think putting a policy in place first isn't necessarily the right move. I think we approve this and then we find the policy. So before we open it up to discussion, do we have a motion for consideration?
I move to approve the facility therapy dog at Mary Griswold School.
Do we have a second? So we have a motion by Tracy, a second by Peter. Now we can open up for discussion if any board members have further questions, want to, talk more about this.
I just have a question, because last meeting we were given an overview of the current visits and status of the therapy dog that was in school, and as I mentioned before, I didn't even know that as a parent of a student and someone at Willard, I did not even know that there was a dog that came to the school. And then through the presentation, this has been going on for the past 5 years. And I understand that, there's, at this moment, the number that keeps coming up is 80 students who get the services through the dog. And, as we on the board, one of our prime missions is to make sure that every student is safe and obviously provided services for them to be successful in school, with the concerns that I said before that we received 10 emails on were in regards to allergies. And I'm just kind of curious, because I don't understand how we don't already have a policy in place for something that could potentially cause health risks to some individuals, like we have a food policy for major allergies. So I'm just kind of curious. I almost feel like we're backwards as I've had time to think about it.
Sure, I can address that. The therapy dog that was been there has been on a temporary basis. It's not been one, it's been isolated to one room. It's not been an issue where there's been health concerns and so on. So it wasn't something taken across the district, it was really something that was started at the school. And you may be right that there should have been a policy then to having it on a temporary basis, but there wasn't, there hasn't been. It's been in place for over 5 years. It's been there before my time as a superintendent. So to say that there shouldn't be a policy or should, I think that if it's a health concern that needs to be addressed, there should have been a policy, but there were practices in place. We haven't had an issue, whether that's a fortune or good luck, or there's good practice put in place by the school on how the therapy dog was used and where the dog was at the time and the precautions of washing hands and so on.
Did that answer your question?
Yep, it did, because obviously going forward, there's families that, you know, I know are already in the process of having a 504 with a potential change. So I was, like I said, if safety was a concern, I was just kind of confused that we didn't have it prior to.
I'm not sure if families weren't aware of it before. I think the families at Griswold were aware the dog was coming in.
Yeah.
The issue is that any parent can ask for a 504 accommodations if they feel that they need them to feel protected, that there's an issue, whether it's the accommodations are made so they can be safe, achieve academically. It's not just, you know, so if there is something that is happening in the school, sometimes a 504 is given for a student who breaks their arm or breaks their hand and they can't write for a short period of time. If there's medical condition, also a 504 can be in place. So I know, as you said, that recently, yes, a parent has asked for a 504 plan to be put in place to provide accommodations for their child.
So I was a little, Melissa, so that was a good question, but I do want to say before I talk too much that I am in support of the dog, and nothing has veered me from that. But I want to speak to the parents who wrote in, and I read all of those emails, because I think they're doing what they're supposed to do to protect their children in the same way that you advocate for the dog, for those who did, for the reasons. And what I read wasn't complaint or that they were opposed fundamentally. They were concerned for their children's health, and that is, as a caregiver and a parent, what they should be. And I thought it kind of stemmed from a lot of just not knowing, and not knowing, you know, what the situation was going to be, what safeguards were going to be in place, and, you know, whether or not their children would be safe. And I think since then, it sounds like some work has been done, and plans were offered, or plans of care, and all sorts of things. So I'm hoping that everyone feels a little bit better about it now that was opposed. But I want them to know that they were heard, and that was very much on my mind as I started to ask questions and read their emails. And again, I didn't read anybody say this is the worst idea ever. It was just, I have a child who's allergic, and I really want to know that my child's going to be able to go to school and be okay, and I respect that. And I think they did their duty as a parent and a caregiver. So I want to say that I heard them, and I'm sure you all did, and they had a voice, and it's validated their concerns. So, but again, I feel like the school did a lot to protect those children, and will continue those measures, and I'm sure the policy will also just cement what they've already been doing in practice, so.
Do you want to go off on that, Brian, first?
Just the other difference is the therapy dog was a dog that came into the building and left the building. This is a little different when we talk about policy, because this is being funded by the PTO, where the therapy dog we had was not. It was an actual therapy dog that came in, as it comes into many schools across the state that have therapy dogs that come out. This is a little bit different situation that is modeled in other districts, but it is different in practice. Not to say the safety precautions don't have to be the same, if not greater, because the dog will be there more frequently. So I think that's a very valid point.
Tracy? Oh, Tracy had it.
No, go ahead. It's just regarding the money that was raised from the PTO was $10,000 for the dog. Now, it's going to be used for the dog, supposedly. What happens when the lifespan of the dog, let's say the dog doesn't live the normal lifespan, like golden retrievers generally live 10 to 11 years. So let's say that therapy dog that Griswold School gets dies in 2 years. You know, what happens? Do you get another dog? Do you have to come up with another $10,000? How does that work? Are you just out the dog? I still don't know the answer to that question.
that was in the, but I think what you're clarifying is, does the company replace the dog?
Right, I mean,
So-
the PTO put up the money now, and now the dog, unexpectedly passes. Now you guys are out of a dog and out of $10,000. I'm just wondering how that's gonna work.
Yeah, and so in the superintendent's response to that question was the Parents Club understands that this is a living being and the life expectancy is unpredictable. We do not feel that we are losing out on funds if an emergency occurs. If the school administration would like to purchase a replacement, it would have to follow our Parent Club policies and procedures as a new purchase. Also, the first concern for Parents Club would be the social emotional fallout of losing what we hope to become a new family member, with less of a focus on concern of funds or replacement. But I guess the part of the question is with the organization that it is being purchased from, do they have any responsibility after the dog is purchased? I don't know if that was what you're
I was just
asking.
looking out for you guys, like in the sense that you've put up this money and now the dog passes away, and now, that was my concern, is that, and that could very well happen. There's so many caveats in it that,
Yeah,
Yeah,
Brian.
I think that's a valid point, but I can go back to, years ago, the PTO fundraising and purchasing the first mobile computer lab. Imagine that long ago.
Yeah.
And the life expectancy of a mobile lab is, computers 5 to 7 years tops. But at that point, the PTO never purchased another one. I know it's not a living being; it's a little different. But there is
No,
a
but the attachment
there
issue
is
and the whole thing.
there's going to be that end of life, and I think that's something. But I think what we tried to word in the question is that attachment piece is more of a concern, and then the replacement part is not something that
Well,
the
it's a
district.
financial
I
burden,
don't, but
you
I
know,
don't think
it's
the district is signing on to use district funds to do this. It's the PTOs at each building look to help the district in various ways. Like I said, the mobile lab was one, and each PTO works with the administration and staff to bring tools to help them, and I think they're
Right.
looking at
No,
it
I
in
get
that
that.
manner.
So there's no 30-day guarantee or money back.
I was part of that mobile lab, by the way. I was part of raising for money for the mobile lab.
There were 30-day money back guarantee.
It was
for that?
great. That's all for, so, as I stated before, but my son has severe animal allergies, especially to dogs. I'm not sure why they are set apart from a cat, which is why we don't have a dog. And so when he goes to a friend's house, he comes home needing Benadryl, like the whole, he doesn't, he's, whatever. However, as I said before, I'm so confident that I would 100% send my child, if he was that young, to Griswold, knowing that they would make sure he was protected. And I can remember a small story that I know is not as big of a deal, but when we had the book fair, we actually had a student there who was deathly afraid of Clifford the big red dog. And I know that sounds kind of minute, but to this student, this was a huge deal. So we had Clifford visit all the classrooms, and we had to have Clifford take a separate route, pause in another room, wait for the student with the class, like he was not alienated. There was no difference in disruption with this student. They made a safe way to the cafeteria. We slid out this other way. So they're definitely, I saw what they did just for that. I know 100% that I really believe that they would take every single student. And I believe, I could be wrong, if having it there full time, I think more than 80 students are going to benefit from it. I would imagine that we're going to be seeing a lot more than just 80 benefiting from having the employee of the month there. And I love how that was so great. When there was the employee, I was like, that was so stinking cute. And I do believe this is an incredible opportunity to be kind of like a testing ground once one of our schools to see how it goes. And the fact that it's not coming from the board funds, that parents have actually contributed and raised money, and they have voted on it, they want this to go through, that's another positive thing, so, in my opinion.
PTO, how many PTO members are there, and how many PTOs were present when they actually voted?
That was in this one too.
Oh. So I'm just trying to get a majority
It's a
sense.
number,
Typical
but
attendance.
it's a typical, right. So I don't know how they're here.
Mr. Campbell So I can ask what the typical
I
membership is?
don't know how many members there are and
Mr.
how
Campbell,
many
can you
people were
speak to how
actually
many
there.
members are on the PTO?
Yeah, so who actually voted? Was there like every member there to vote and it was a majority vote?
Most of our meetings, I would say there's somewhere from 5 to 15 parents that attend, in addition to staff as well as the executive board. And so that was a typical attendance weight based on everything there. That's what we get for all of our meetings. And some of the board meetings, most meetings, there's 2 to 3 parents that I usually see here at most. So it's a pretty typical meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Maybe you can answer this, I'm not sure. You know, I know the PTO meetings I attend before the meeting, I get the email saying there's a meeting. I think the agenda might be included, so I know what's up, minutes are sent out. Is that the same protocol at Griswold? Yeah.
I could speak, typically at a PTO meeting, there's a discussion amongst the executive board. Whoever's present at the meeting is who usually votes. So each year, the PTO looks to provide teachers and administration with tools, not always a dog, but tools, and then they decide and agree that this is how the money's gonna be spent. So it's not like they send out a flyer and ask to vote on how the money's spent. It's who's ever present at that meeting, who's there, whatever the fundraising has been. Because typically the people at the meetings are the ones that do a lot of the fundraising, are very involved in it heavily into the fundraising too. I know, Tracy, you've been a PTO
Oh, yeah.
president for a number of years.
Many.
So, I mean, you could speak too. I know, Jen, you've been on PTOs also.
Yeah, usually it's like your core that show up at the meetings.
Melissa
It's
here
the-
on Willards. so
Yeah,
I
it's
mean-
the ones that are always the ones sharing everything, raising, voting on how the money is spent and stuff. A lot of people don't go just to, hang out. It's usually the core people, and they do get a say in what happens, and it's, on how they spend their money and stuff like that, but it's not a huge turnout.
But at the end of the day, it's still affecting the entire Griswold community, the Griswold school. It's not just those particular parents. It's every student that goes to that school. So that's my only concern, is that it's still the whole Griswold community, not just the parents who have taken the time. And, kudos to those parents who have volunteered their time and their energy to fundraise and make the money. But it's still the entire school community that's involved.
Yeah.
That's all.
And I don't know if Griswold is the same as Willard, but I know that PTO meetings are happening as a parent because on School Messenger, I get messages that they're happening to remind me. And though I don't typically show up, I've been to 3 this year, it does inform me that I have a right to be there, and it reminds
Right.
me that it's happening. But I would assume Griswold is the same. Communication is sent out to all families, letting them know that this is occurring, and
And they have it on social media.
But I also think this is a unique situation, as you're saying, Gina, that's why it's here in front of the entire board. Typically, what would happen at a PTO, they'd vote on it, there'd be a conversation with the administration, maybe some staff members would write letters to PTO asking for certain items, I know Dawn's sitting here. So, and then the PTO would decide, and they probably would then post what they purchased with the money, and that's how it would be done, and that'd be
Right.
something that's public.
Yeah.
But this is a living creature, this has other implications, and
Well,
that's
yeah.
why we're here
Yeah.
at a much bigger sense than
Right.
what it typically would happen.
It's affecting a lot of people.
Right,
I
but
mean, it's affecting the whole
even
community.
buying, the use of technology or the use of a teaching tool is gonna impact, but this is much bigger because of the, it's a living
Right.
creature, right? It's an animal, so, and it's unique. It's not something that's been done before that I could speak to in my years, so.
And they've done significant, like they did a $30,000 rock wall, like they do a lot that, that is a huge chunk of money for just a wall. But they voted on doing, I'm not saying I was against that, but like something that big, they did vote on.
And
something
usually,
like that.
some PTOs like to do a large item that impacts the whole school, that's gonna have this impact. because it is the parent-teacher organization for the whole school. I mean, it's not, there might be little pieces for some teachers, but they like to do a large, PTOs in the past have done, like I talked about the mobile app, you talked about the rock wall, maybe an outside courtyard or a picnic area or something like that.
Yeah, please.
So backing off of Mrs. C's comment previously, I know the dog has been there for a variety of years now, but especially after the pandemic, where a lot of younger students are confronted with these feelings where they can't really verbalize them, they don't really feel comfortable doing that, where they just don't have the vocabulary. Having something that normally don't talk back to you, but will just express their mutual feelings of love towards you, it can be a pillar of support for them, as they might have a rough day and might just need to go see something, or just kind of look at something and say, look at this, they're very happy, and I can kind of reciprocate those emotions. So I think we'll kind of change this after effect of the pandemic with these more inventive therapeutic ways that really I believe are going to become essential in the next couple of years.
Do you want one in the high school?
I don't like dogs. So.
You
I'm more of
don't
a cat
like dogs,
person.
but you think it's great.
I'm more of a cat person. So.
Do you want a therapy cat at the high school?
Yes, I would.
I'm kidding. That would be a big one. Anisha, Jen, Adam, Peter, Adam.
Please.
To Gina's point, I think everyone being informed about the proposal is critical, and the message did get out through, I think through school email, like late last week, right? Yeah, because right after that, we kind of saw a surge in emails and responses, so certainly a lot of people were informed about what was going on, and oddly enough, a lot of the emails that came after that were in overwhelming support. So people who did have concerns or were opposed to the proposal certainly had the opportunity to express themselves via email or to attend today's meeting. I don't think it was done in a way that was not transparent or not open in any way, shape, or form. I support the therapy dog, and I thank everyone for sending emails and being engaged, whether you supported the dog or whether you had concerns about the dog or what have you, and to everyone who came out to speak today, especially the students, because it's critically important to participate in the civic process. So thank you.
Thanks, Peter. Adam?
Since we're all speaking. Just quickly, I've had 3 daughters that went through Griswold. A couple of teachers are here this evening, thank you. And I know that the PTO is certainly a driving force behind what's best for the kids. So if this is something they're looking for, and again, Ryder made my evening just walking into the Board of Ed meeting tonight to see him. But if this is something that they're looking for, and quite frankly, Ryder has been around for a while, I've never heard a complaint from anybody, then I'm not going to stand in the way. I certainly support it, and I think it's going to be go a long ways towards helping students and helping the adults as well.
I just want to thank the Griswold Parents Club. I think this is a tremendous opportunity for the school to get something that will impact a lot of the students going forward.
I guess one last comment, if that's okay. I just want to assure the parents that do have concerns, we will do everything we can to work with you so you feel comfortable and safe in the school and acknowledge any of the concerns you have. So I just want you to know, if this does move forward, that it's not as though, I don't want anyone to feel like it's being done to them or it's putting their child in harm's way. We will make sure that's not the case, as it hasn't been having Ryder. We'll continue on with those precautions and others that may be needed.
Anusha, would you like to share anything?
And I saw the dog and I pet the dog. I'm not even a dog person, I'm a cat person, to be honest. But it just made my day better. And so I think, and I forgot who said it, I'm sorry, but when they said even all of us, we go home to our pets, just to relax, to feel better. So having that in the school, and if 80 students are already benefiting from it, I think with the dog only being there once or twice a week, I think if the dog is there constantly, many more students could benefit from it.
Board, thank you so much. Do any other board members have anything they'd like to share? So just to recap, at our last board meeting, we heard from a number of people. I don't have the exact number. We've received 24 pieces of correspondence to the board, including the letter Brian received tonight. I believe it's 23 emails. maybe off by 1 or 2. And the board did read them, and, you know, I think it's important to hear everyone's emails and position on this. So we received about 24 in support. We received 7 with concerns, and I think those concerns are valid, and I think those concerns, if this is approved, will help shape the policy to make sure all students are safe, as Brian had said. And then 13 people, including students, came out and spoke tonight in support of the dog, and I don't think anyone spoke in opposition of the dog. You know, we've had over a month now, since March 11th, to ask questions and to do more research. And the principal, Jonathan Campbell, sent out a letter last week to the school community. And, you know, I just think, like I stated, it's important to ensure that what our policy adoption is, if this moves forward, it will ensure that all students are safe. The responses to the questions were included in the superintendent update. And I guess one final question for Mr. Campbell. Based on your email, was the feedback you received like positive, negative, neutral? If you'd like to share that, you don't have to.
I'd be glad to. I didn't count the number of positive responses I got. I did not get any questions of concern or any opposition.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so does anyone else have?
I think it's important to note, if it's still correct in the responses we got, that there was an identified sponsor vet. Is that correct? So that's I think that's important to know as well.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important factor too. Thank you for bringing that up. Okay, so hearing no more discussion, we can move to a vote. So, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? You're in favor or opposed? Okay, so the board moves 8-0 to approve the facility therapy dog at Mary E. Griswold School, and I really think our board, the school administration, the students, the faculty and staff, and the parents did their due diligence at making sure that we really considered this before jumping into something. So thank you all for your contributions around that. So thank you.
Congratulations.
You can leave. You don't have to stay, but you can if you'd like. But you could grab some cookies on the way out. Okay, so moving on to our next agenda item, non-renewal of contracts for non-tenured staff. Do we have a motion for consideration?
I'll move to the contracts of employment for non-tenured teachers, Erica Barbagallo, Kristen Kavanaugh, Megan Langlius, Kimberly Weller, Amanda Weinstein, Megan Yale, and Steve Yielding not be renewed for 2024-2025 school year upon their expiration at the end of the current school year.
Do we have a second? So the motion by Adam, the second by Peter. Do we have any discussion, or is there anything you'd like to share?
Just that these are all one-year positions, so it's not as though we're terminating tenured staff. They were aware of that when they signed the contract.
Okay. Any other discussion?
And I say it every time we do this. I hope this is not a poor reflection on them going forward. Obviously, it's a one-year contract, and hopefully they are gain some experience and are able to move on to another district.
Not at all. Not at all a poor reflection.
Thank you.
Other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The vote carries 8-0. Okay, moving on to the Healthy Food Certification Statement for July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2025. So Section 10-215F of the Connecticut General Statute requires that each local Board of Education for public schools participating in the National School Lunch Program must take action to certify whether all the food items sold to students separately from reimbursable meals will or will not meet the Connecticut nutrition standards, and whether to allow food or beverage exemptions. 2 motions are required. Before we make those motions, do you have anything you'd like to add?
This is a standard procedure that we
Right.
have to do every year.
Okay, these are long motions. Who would like to make the first motion? Peter, have at it.
So into CGS Section 10, 215F, the Berlin Board of Education certifies that all food items offered for sale to students in the schools under its jurisdiction and not exempted from the Connecticut nutrition standards published by the Connecticut State Department of Education will comply with the Connecticut nutrition standards during the period of July 1, 2024 through June 30th, 2025. This certification shall include all food offered for sale to students separately, from reimbursable meals at all times, and from all sources, included but not limited to school stores, vending machines, school cafeterias, culinary programs, and any fundraising activities on school premises sponsored by the school or non-school organizations and groups.
Do we have a second? So the motion by Peter, the second by Jen. Any discussion on the first one? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The vote is 8-0. For the next one, do we have a motion for consideration?
Move the Berlin Board of Education will allow the sale of to students of food items that do not meet the Connecticut nutrition standards and beverages listed in Section 10-221Q of the Connecticut General Statutes, provided the following conditions are met. 1, the sale is in connection with an event occurring after the end of the regular school day or on the weekend. Number 2, the sale is at a location of the event. And 3, the food and beverage items are not sold from a vending machine or school store. An event is an occurrence that involves more than just the regularly scheduled practices, meetings, or extracurricular activities. For example, soccer games, school plays, and interscholastic debates are events, but soccer practices, play rehearsals, and debate team meetings are not. The regular school day is a period from midnight midnight before to 30 minutes after the end of the official school day. Location means where the event is being held and must be the same place as the food and beverage sales.
Do we have a second? Second. So the motion by Adam, the second by Brian. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, we can move to a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Vote is 8-0. Okay, so moving on to the next item, proposed 2025-2026 school calendar and establishment.
Can we jump to E first? I think it's better to do E, the 20,
Yes.
2024
Yes, do
5
we need to
before
make a motion to change order? No, okay. Let's move to E, the 2024 to 2025. So at the March 11th meeting, the superintendent proposed the addition of 2 shortened days, February 13th and March 5th, for professional learning of the 2024-2025 school year. The purpose was to address the additional demands placed on the district by the state. We have had more than 3 hours added to our expectation this year for professional development. We also need additional time to address our focus on high-quality instruction and other instructional areas. This was presented at the most recent Parent Advisory Council meeting, and parents in attendance were in support of this. The proposed revisions were reviewed by the curriculum committee during the March 11th meeting, which was before our board meeting. This item was tabled at the March board meeting for further discussion this evening. You guys also had your opportunity to send your questions, and I believe they were also provided in the superintendent's update. I'm trying to pull that up right now. So it was item 18, the professional development training requirements and responses to questions. So before we get into our discussion, I will entertain a motion for consideration in a second, and then we can have our discussion before we go to a vote. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the revisions to the 2024-2025 school calendar as presented.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
So the motion by Adam, the second by Melissa. Now we can open it up for discussion. Is there anything you would like to start with to recap?
The only thing I'd like to say is that if it's an issue with the day, it doesn't have to be a Wednesday. If we think it'd be more advantageous to have a Friday, so it's an early weekend for people, for parents, it's easier. The day, it doesn't matter. So I just wanted to put that out front.
For families, but I mean, that's the flavor of the board. And then, of course, I'm always going to mention that, you know, it would be ideal to have the professional development match up with the referendum dates for security reasons, but I don't know if that's a possibility. But yeah.
Kind of just going on what Peter said, I totally agree, especially for a safety perspective, just to consider. And obviously, I applaud that we gave over a month, right, for parents to review, because kind of, I think the same thing as the PTO. It's great that we have the parent advisory, but it is a small group of individuals that are putting in their 2 cents. So at least by giving this month, it allowed opportunity, whoever wanted, to present. I'm just kind of curious, because we have the representation here too with the teachers union, because the teachers that I've talked to, especially with half days, and even myself, when I was in the public school, it's kind of limited to get done what you really want to get done within a half day versus a full day. Obviously, nobody wants to add additional days because you have contracts, but I'm just kind of curious how many teachers, put the input in terms of that discussion.
So what we did probably 6 years ago is we had a lot of half days, like 12, I think. We put them back to full days for just what you said.
Yeah.
But now we're at a crossroads where the state keeps putting more and more trainings in that, not to put more. I think your statement about being more advantageous for a full day is correct. But then it's another day, which then it's more of an expense. We have 1 day more than 180 for students. So we have 181. We used to have 183. We pulled 2 of those back and made them PD already. But the problem is the state just keeps adding more and more requirements. And you also want to have training that's meaningful for specific areas so that things aren't stagnant, things are moving, and best practices and so on. So that's why I think we're asking for half days. Not that we don't feel that full days are more advantageous. Evelisa, Evelisa Mayat is here. She's our BA president of the union. If you'd like to, sure, if you'd like to add something, Evelisa.
There are 6 full PD days, correct? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 full PD days.
Yeah, teacher's contract's 188.
Yeah.
So students go from 181, so 7 are full.
Yep.
Well, I think most teachers would tell you we'd rather have the students than a full day of PD, because anytime we interrupt instruction, it's really not a positive experience. So if we could have a half day, so at least we'd still see the kids, we'd still see our classes, as opposed to a full day. Instructionally, as a high school teacher, would be far better. All the trainings and all the PD that we do need to get done does get cumbersome, and when it's a lot of full days, it's just too much. It's just like constant overload of information, which is not really beneficial. It's like checking boxes. So the half days does make more sense, because we could do it in a piecemeal fashion and probably actually get more done, because to expect someone for 6 hours to just be focused on one thing, our attention span isn't much better than the kids. So having those half days, we get a 30-minute lunch, we start working at noon, at the high school we're done at 2:30. The 2.5 hours tend to be more productive, I think.
Back for years. Typically, they're hour and a half or
Yes.
2-hour blocks. We don't do a 6-hour PD because just what you said. Even attention spans of teachers can be limited. So, right, it's not best practice for students. It's not best educational practice for teachers to just, for 6 hours.
Get back into the swing of things when we have those full days off.
So I think if you look at how the PD days are scheduled, the 3 at the beginning here is typical to most districts, but then we attach them on to making long weekends for parents. So it is as least impactful to their schedule to have an extra week. So if they're taking a vacation day, they have an extra week, extra day on the vacation. And even when we go into November, we put 2 together so that there is the ability to take a long weekend there. So.
Does anyone else have any other questions before she leaves?
Are all of these mandated by the state?
The trainings are all mandated by the state. The other PDs, like for instance, the state is now mandating that we change our our evaluation system. So that is going to be a whole other thing to train staff and administrators on what to do. So although it's not something that's mandated by the state, I don't think there's any other way. When are you going to train the staff about the new evaluation system? It's going to have to be during a PD time, right? So the trainings are mandated by the state, but there's also mandates by the state that the district is responsible to ensure that we know what to do, so.
So Tracy, the document that you got, that beginning part, that says mandated training, that's the part that's all that HR had put together. These. Got it, right. You need to teach a certain reading program, so you need to provide the training in order to teach those, that reading program, right? Ian's laughing at me. Reading program.
So yeah, some things are mandated by the state, but some things are mandated, and the district, exactly,
We have to figure
exactly.
out how to make it happen. Got it, understand that. Thank you.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, some things are, we need to do things that are right for Berlin.
Mhm.
So like we might be updating the social studies curriculum to include Berlin Historical Society information because that's specific to Berlin and we want our kids to learn about Berlin. That has to happen at some point.
Mhm.
Other questions, comments, discussion?
So this calendar that I'm looking at is the section of what they're at, what we're voting on, potentially.
As such.
Okay.
So this current school year, we have 5. Next year, we'll have 7.
Right, and that's, it's important, because this calendar's out, so we need to update it and get it out to parents in a separate email to say we have 2 additional, if that's the case, then we gotta get this out to them, and, you know, and just, you know, I'm not sure how far ahead parents plan, but we wanna have that out there, because we're gonna adopt, next year, we're gonna adopt the following year's calendar tonight, hopefully after this.
I'm not opposed to training the teacher ever, okay? I'm just gonna say something though, not ever am I opposed that the teacher's getting trained. My concern though, and I'm not saying we shouldn't do this, is that is all, I'm looking at the calendar, it is full of color. Like it is like, it's a very full colored calendar. And coming out of the pandemic and trying to get our kids as much time in the classroom is a concern of mine. Not saying I wish there was a way we could do everything, and I know there's probably not. That's not what I mean. I know we have to train our teachers. Believe me, I all for that. I just wish there was another way, because it's just, like I'm looking at each month, and each, except for May, is like, the most space is in May. And everything else is like, it's kind of sad looking, because if you got parents working in elementary school, that's a whole nother thing. But just the education aspect, I just wish our kids were in school a little bit more right now.
I think that statement you're making is accurate about the parents, because I can say when we used to have all the half-days, if I was getting a sandwich at Kensington Market, you know, parents say, we're another half-day out, we're out another half-day. It is an imposition to parents, there's no doubt. And that's why the previous board went with more full days, and went from 183 days to 181 for students, and used that to do just what you were saying, you know, looked at the time and so on. But, you know, one way or another, we have to get the PD in. So the other way to do it is to release teachers with subs, which we don't have a great sub base, even though we raised the pay, and there's no districts do it this time. So what would happen is we then have other teachers covering, or paras pulled to move things forward, especially when, like Lori spoke of, when it's a new program that teachers need, there needs to be PD on it, so they're able to understand how to implement with students. That's the other way we would do things. And that's something we try to do as limited as possible, but sometimes the need is there.
I have a question, and I know this has been coming up for a few years now, and it just came up at the start of this. Peter mentioned it about the referendum day, and I know that parents always have issues with us having school and the schools being open with the polls, and I understand it's a register voter issue, it's a bigger issue. Would it be possible for the 2024-2025 calendar to take away the April and May half-day and replace it with a full-day PD on referendum? And then you'd probably be getting in more hours of PD for the
But you
teachers.
have to take away, then students would go 180 days versus 181. Because you can't do the extra day for teachers with PD, then expect them to teach the day, because then you're adding a day to their contract.
Yeah.
Day we already have. It doesn't give us more days. We could definitely move.
That would just be moving the February.
That one.
PD day to April.
Which-
And that would accommodate the safety concerns that some families have.
Yeah, I just feel like the safety concerns keep coming up, and we just keep saying our hands are tied and not doing anything about it. I think this might be an opportunity to look at this and figure out what we can do, or removing one at the beginning of the year, because if families want to take a February vacation, that gives them the opportunity to with the Friday, Monday, Tuesday. And families might already be figuring out what their vacation is next year. I don't know if 3 days are needed at the beginning or 2, but I think while we're looking at the 24-25 calendar, I think it's really worth like trying to figure out how we can address this if.
I think moving to February with this calendar already being out, I think that'd be very tough, because
I do
that
too.
people do take winter vacations and do things during that time.
Plus, I like the fact that, because we remember that one year, and I always bring this up, we got hammered with snow, and we had all half days and snow days, and the kids were never, like, the parents, the biggest complaint was they were never in school in February. It was like huge because of the snow days and all the half days that we had because of conferences and vacations, and so maybe moving one of those more possible snow impacted ones to a non-snow impacted month. I don't know, maybe just a thought.
25, 26. So if that was something you wanted to do, to take the February one and move it, that, I think in the 25, 26 not being adopted, that's something that could take place. Would a half day on the referendum day be better to get the students out?
Move the referendum location, period.
We've asked that.
Period.
I've already asked that.
For the 7% of people that come out, we're jumping through hoops and hurdles for something ridiculous.
I've asked that numerous times.
So what's the response? I'm just curious,
Well,
because
that's
I mean,
the
I'm wondering what it is that needs to be done.
That's the location that's approved, and that's what people are used to using. So the thing is, I get a letter every year from the same person saying, you should close school, just close school that day.
We had a referendum, excuse me, one year at American Legion, worked out fine.
The town was going to propose in charter revision to just reduce the polling places for referendum into one set location, one polling place. I don't know what that place was going to be, but that kind of got pushed away because it was well, we want more people to vote in the referendum, but we're going to reduce the polling places, so people weren't really keen on that proposal. Moving the places doesn't seem like a likely conclusion, even though it may be possible, dealing with our current town government. So that's why we're kind of forced to take the ball with this one, in my opinion. I'm not opposed to moving, the February PD to the April, because, that's referendum number 1, and maybe you only have one, and then doing a half day on May. At least we're making some progress in that direction.
What about moving one of the 3 PD days at the beginning of the year and just giving 2 PD days at the beginning of the year, moving one to referendum?
Discussion about the 2 November days being back to back. I think part of the rationale had been give the long weekend because election day is a Tuesday. So we said instead of kids coming in on Monday, then they're off Tuesday, with that exception. But I don't know what people think having the 2 days in a row there. If we move the Monday to a different date, we could do that and just keep our election day as one.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't give the long weekend.
It doesn't.
But they could take the absence. Mm-hmm.
in December is really disruptive to quarter
And Brian, if we move that day to the second referendum in May, that'll always make Memorial Day a 4-day weekend instead.
No, I think, I know that parents appreciate when you can pack it on to the weekends. That's why I asked about even going from when, I don't think it's for next year, but going even 25, going to Friday versus I mean, we looked at I know that we asked you, saw the attachment, the attendance is, I don't think there was any correlation to teachers taking off in a drastic way. There may have been some correlation to certain teachers as we looked, we didn't provide you with that, we just provided with the overview. But I think that, changing of the day of the week might be helpful, or it might lessen the impact for parents.
So do you think we could consider moving one of, like, the Monday, November 4th, to the referendum day in April? Because then kids come to school for one day. It's less of a issue for parents who have to find childcare. If parents are having a big Thanksgiving, they're already worried about that at the end of the month and not taking off time at the beginning of the month. And then we're doing our due diligence at addressing the concern that comes forward every single year that we just haven't been able to find a solution for. Or are there better solutions? I just think that this is our opportunity to finally address this. I like Kara's suggestion.
I think someone mentioned last time, yeah, we're not going to be able to mitigate the primaries if and when we have them, but we're making, we can anticipate the referendum. We know that much at least. We're making some progress.
So, I guess, for 25, would we want to leave it as such? Would we, without moving anything, because it's already been out, could we do half days on the referendum days for that 1 year? And add that's where the 2 additional half days would go? Is that something that would be acceptable?
And I think, given the circumstances, that would be acceptable.
At least students are out by midday, and polling goes on till 8 o'clock at night. So it's a halfway measure.
Yeah.
Then the following year, because we haven't adopted, if you want to pull the 3rd and put that on, the first referendum date, and then, keep the half day on the other one, I'm just, and we can.
I guess it would work the same as a regular day.
We'd have an officer there, and we'd have security there. I don't think it'd be, because they use a separate entrance, I don't think it'd be that bad. I think parents might appreciate the students being out, because, yes, some come in early in the morning, but then for the evening and afternoon, the school would not be in session, anyone that came in. But
I'm just gonna say it again. We're moving a lot of parents and a lot of students for less than 10% of the voting public to come out for referendum. I'm just gonna say it again.
So I guess the first question is on 24, 25, we want to keep it as such. Is there any willingness to add the 2 days, whatever days of the week or whatever, or is 24, 25, it's out, we want to keep it as such, not adding the 2 days, I guess, two early release days? What's that? That's not approved yet, so I'm asking the board. We just heard that people are saying we're moving early release days for less than 10% of the voters, and several board members said.
That's just my.
Several board members, but someone else also said that's for 10%. So I guess what I'm asking the board is, the original proposal is to add 2 days. As such, the 2 dates are noted. If that's not the case because the calendar's been out, then we don't do anything for 24, 25, and then we look at 25, 26, which has not been released yet, so that anything that we put out is the first time for parents to see.
So the current 24, 25 has 5 half-days.
No, the current has a total of 7, because we added the 2 dates to the 2 dates
The
that
one
were.
on the website has 5.
Right, because that's what we adopted.
Right.
Right, 5.
That's the current one.
The
So
one
if we
we're-
go ahead and adopt this
We're adding
one.
2 more. The 2 dates that we're adding here, you have,
Right.
you're adding the 13th and the 5th. 13th of February, 5th of March were the 2 dates that were proposed in this calendar to be added, and that's
Right.
what we're talking about. Right. One thing I'm saying, the thought was to put on the 2 referendum dates, The other thought was moving the Fridays. I guess the thing I'm asking is there any, is that appealing to anyone or willingness to do that? Because then we gotta move off of 24, 25 and go to 25, 26 as a separate.
So just to be clear, we're saying the current approved 24, 25, do we want to keep that, or do we want to approve the new one?
The new one,
Was
or-
that your question?
Right, yes, or offer another alternative.
The new one adds 2 days, so they're asking, do we want to add those 2 days? Or just keep it the way it is right now?
And if we don't add those 2 days, what do we do with those two? What do we do with that PD? Where does
They
that
have
go?
5 days of half-day PD.
As I said, we'll fit it in by, if we can't have enough PD, we're gonna fit it in by having release time, which means
Okay.
students are in session, we're gonna have subs or other teachers covering
Okay.
for what we need to do with PD.
But there's still 7 full days of PD and 5 half-days in the current approved one. And then in the proposed one, there's the same 7.
7 full and 7 half.
7 full and 7 half.
2 additional halves.
But I think if we approve the new one, then we should move the April and May half-day to the referendum days. But I think if we're gonna stick with, we don't wanna change anything, it's already been out, then we stick with that. I don't know about moving April and May to the referendum days. I think there's a few different moving pieces here. Can we just go around and share like where we all are? I know that's kinda taking a vote, but not really. Are you?
Changing any dates that have already been out there.
No, you're just adding to it.
Well,
That's different than changing.
well, if we're,
Keep it
if,
and then work on it for the
exact-
following calendar
exact.
year
So you're saying like don't touch the 24, 25? Is it
I'm
24?
saying don't touch it
And don't add.
and don't add.
What do you think?
Don't add?
Mm-hmm.
I said.
Hang on, I'll come right back to you, Gina.
I was gonna say, I have no problem with the new one, adding the 2 additional half-days. I wouldn't move anything else around. If you wanna move things to referendum days, then I would do that for 25, 26.
I mean, I don't like the fact that there's 2 more, but you have to do them. And going forward, I would definitely do it differently, but we can address that when that happens.
Okay, Brian?
Yeah. That's it.
Okay. Tracy? You want me to come back?
Yeah,
You're in deep thought, Melissa.
I am thinking, I'm debating right now.
I mean, I said this before, I mean, districts are in predicaments because of individuals, you know, mandating certain things. I feel bad for staff, I feel bad for parents, I feel bad for students, and I think we are all on the same page for that. So it's just finding the best option. I mean, I do believe, I think adding it to Fridays instead of Wednesdays, which I understand Wednesday for consistency, that makes sense too. That would just be my only input, but I definitely wouldn't want, if we're talking about being less disruptive to the classroom, I don't see teachers being pulled out of their classrooms and subs going in there is anything going to be productive
Yeah.
at all.
I agree.
So rather it be a half day than that.
Peter?
To move them to Friday. I don't think that's going to be disruptive to anyone. I think you're going to get higher satisfaction from parents having those half days on Fridays. In terms of moving the referendum days on 24, 25 calendar, I'd like to see it change. But if the board if others feel it's going to be like that disruptive, then it's not that big a deal. And we can address it in 25, 26.
Yeah. So basically saying for the 2 that we're adding to the revised calendar that has been out, just put those on Fridays instead.
And something I just thought of too that I forgot with it being consistent and being on Wednesday, particularly in kindergarten, my son had art on Wednesday. So that means every half day he got way less instruction in that area because the half days were always on a Wednesday.
So breaking it up.
So spacing it out so that you know, not one particular class or schedule would be affected.
All right, thank you. Tracy?
I think, I agree with all of it. I mean, obviously, it's probably something that we need to do. I'm concerned on the kids being in school. I think they need to be in school. But I do believe, because we come across this like every year, we're adding days, half days. Every single year it comes to us with more half days, whether it was, and all legit reasons, all very good reasons. But I think we have to come up with something for that really, instead of just coming to a meeting and be like, okay, let's vote on the agenda, like really dig deep, maybe with one of the committees or something about the calendar for 25-26, and really kind of come up with a creative but a good way that we can fit everything in a way that is less harmful to our students and our teachers. Like somehow, whether that's Fridays, referendum, whatever it is, I think we really need to figure that out maybe, like once, and in my opinion.
And I think that conversation can continue with the next one, right?
Well, yeah,
because
exactly.
I agree.
That's what I mean,
So,
like for that.
so looking at the proposed revisions, the first half day that's being added is Thursday, February 13th, and then there's no school Friday. So that gives it almost a long weekend. So then the May one, could that then be moved to the Friday, May 23rd, and then that kind of makes it a longer week, the Friday, May 23rd, and then that like kicks off Memorial Day weekend a little bit earlier. Staff might not be happy, but. What?
There would be 2 half days in that week, though.
We don't have, there's only one showing. There's only one showing.
Oh, so you're gonna move, then, okay, then you're gonna keep the 5th, because the additional day that was added was the 5th.
Where?
We don't have that on here.
I don't have that on here.
No, but if you look at the original proposal here for 24-25, the additional days that are changing in the calendar for parents are the 5th is getting added and the 13th is getting added. I don't think the 13th is gonna be.
The 5th of what?
5th of March.
Oh, I thought you said May.
Oh, I was looking at May. I
Yeah,
must
okay,
have,
I
I must
No.
have picked that up
So,
wrong.
so, yes, I have an arrow, Julia, saying move it to 23rd, but that, we already have the 21st published. So the new date that people would be having is the 5th. That's the one that they don't have. So it.
Wow. They put it in a month that's nuts
There's already a ton of half days up.
because of parent-teacher conferences. Yeah.
So we could move the 5th, though. We could move the 5th up to November and make it the 1st, and that would give the long weekend on a Friday. And
Yeah.
that would be a new date.
That's not a bad idea.
But then that gives flexibility to do whatever families want to do,
Right.
or.
I think it's less, the impact would be less. I don't know if families will be thrilled, but I think the impact would be less knowing it's a Friday.
You want to do it Memorial Day weekend? In case they want to go away, get a head start. Got it. Good call. Okay.
And also our bands are in the parade, there's gonna be.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we would change the proposal here.
March 5th goes to November.
March 5th goes November 1st, and the 13th stays in place. That would be the proposal that's here. And everything else remains the same for 24-25.
Yep.
March 5th is going to November 1st.
Yeah,
Fourth
so
and
then
fifth
that
weekend,
would be the
right.
Friday, taking their feedback.
And the 13th is staying in place on February. That's staying as proposed.
Any other discussion before we move to a vote? I know we've spent a long time here. All right, we can move to a vote. All those in favor?
What are we voting
Wait.
Um,
Can I just-
What's the vote?
I made-
Yeah.
Let's just go back for a
I
second.
think we have to redo our
I'm-
motion.
I made,
No,
I,
it just says move to approve of the 24-25 school calendar.
can I just?
Yeah, please, yeah.
I made the motion, I'm just gonna clarify, that we're gonna vote on the proposed changes to 24-25 calendar. The only change, with the exception of now, it's gonna, rather than the March 5th half-day, it's gonna move to November 1st as a half-day. Everything else as presented will remain the same.
All right. Thank you for that, Adam. Now we can move to a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, so the vote carries 7-1. Thank you. Okay,
So, the only thing I would do with D, if we could, is establish the graduation date, because we're supposed to do that in April here. But I think we need to go back, based on the discussion amongst the board, come back and maybe take it to a subcommittee with some other proposals based on what was shared this evening. Does that seem reasonable?
yes. So for item D, it's proposed 2025-2025 school calendar and establishment of BHS graduation date for 2026. So what Brian just said is, we will establish the graduation date, but then bring this calendar to a subcommittee. We'll form a subcommittee to then look at everything that we've been talking about, so we're not jumping right in. So we'll send an email about that,
Go back
right?
to
Or
curriculum.
or
Back
you
to
want to send
curric-
it to the
send it to
curriculum?
curriculum again.
Okay, we'll just send it back to curriculum. When you, yeah. I think maybe a little, like, where it's appropriate, maybe put it on a Friday, and then I think that might be less disruptive, like, you know, to your high school classes or your extracurricular classes, and then kind of mixing it up. Because I think you brought up a great point about all these half days, and then you're not able to necessarily get certain things done, and then you have more PD days, and so I think looking at it as a committee would just, there's a lot to consider, and then we could just give it the time it needs.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, so Adam's gonna go ahead and make a motion.
I'll move to set the 2026 Berlin High School graduation date for Friday, June 12th, 2026.
Motion by Adam. Do we have a second? Second by Gina. Any discussion? Oh, I'm sorry, Jen. Any discussion? It's your graduation, Anusha. Are you excited? We're setting the date. All right. No discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The vote is 8-0. Thank you. Okay. Covering a lot this evening. Moving on to the next item, F, policy review and revision. So Shipman and Goodwin has recommended the revisions to these policies listed above, based on statutory or regulatory changes, citation updates, and best practices. The ad hoc committee for policy review and revision met on March 11th, 2024 to review the recommended revisions. The first reading took place at the March 11th board meeting. The second reading and adoption will take place this evening. Do we have a motion for consideration?
I will move that the board adopt the recommended revisions to policies 2201, 3323, 4118.5, 5144, 5131.83, 5131.81, 6141.9, and 6172.1 as presented.
Do we have a second? So it's Gina. So motion by Adam, second by Gina. Any discussion on these items? Okay, we can move to a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? 8-0. Okay, and the first read, okay, so moving on, the way it was written as number 2, that's why. Okay, the first reading, new policy 5118.2, children of non-resident board employees, qualified tuition reduction. So at our last F&O committee meeting on April 16th, this was discussed, allowing children of non-resident board employees to enroll in Berlin Public Schools. Since this is a first reading, no action is required. The second reading and adoption will take place May 13th, 2024. The discussion around this was, you know, as we're trying to find retention and recruitment strategies for staff, this might be a cost-effective way of, you know, well, it wouldn't really cost us too much. We would come up with an amount, and then people would have that option of, you know, bringing their children for a cost. And in Schoology, under policy review revision first reading, in that folder, there's 3 documents attached: a sample non-resident tuition agreement, and the qualified tuition reduction documents for non-resident board employees. So I'll turn it over to the superintendent or anyone from the committee.
With the documents that Julia shared, one is a letter that kind of outlines that they would sign a contract. It also outlines that it's not a guarantee. It's looked at annually whether we're accepting students or not. If a student requires additional services, the employee would still be required to pay for those services. It's not as though that they were, so if it was additional reading help or math help, that's not something that the district would then take on as an expense. It would be passed on to the parents. If it was a special education student, it would be that local district that would have to pay the fee, or they'd have to return to a local district. So what we're really saying is, you know, we're willing to educate students as a benefit to parents for a nominal fee. And the way I have it determined tonight, it just says a percentage. And the thought was do a percentage of the per pupil. So as the per pupil goes up, then this goes up a nominal amount each time. Or we set a flat fee that's determined annually. But I think the biggest thing is once the student is in, and if behavior is out of, in the letter states, if there's, you know, behavior, you know, minor behavioral infractions are one thing. Major behavioral infractions, they would immediately be asked to leave the district. So trying to limit the exposure to the district if there's, you know, additional expense or the student is not behaving, is disruption to the learning process for others, we have those provisions in there. And then the policy that you have in front of you, we took a policy from another district who's done this for years and then had Shipman rework it for us. Based on the reworking, I don't think Shipman wrote the other district's policy because he did a lot of reworking for our policy here that's in front of you. I did speak to the superintendent of the other district that's done this for over 20 years. They've had great success with it. It is a very good district in terms of academic performance. Similar demographics to Berlin. They're one DERG higher, I believe, than we are. But that's where this model came from.
We did talk about this in our F&O committee meeting. One of the things that we're looking at is trying to come up with additional areas where we can recruit and retain teachers and staff. There's only so much you can do, but this seems like a unique thing that some other districts are doing and might be worth investigating. You may have a teacher that lives in one town over that would like to have their children attend the Berlin Public Schools, and I think it's a great idea. It will hopefully help to recruit as well. Might be the difference between a teacher coming to Berlin versus another district. It might help retain that teacher as well, because if their students are doing well and excelling in the classroom and in the educational system, it's going to be that much more difficult to uproot them and leave. So it might be a good tool for retainage as well. So we think it's something that's going to be reviewed annually. So if it's not successful, or if it's not operating the way that we want it to, we can always just decide not to continue it. But we think it's worth at least a shot and seeing what it can do for our district.
I know this is the first time a lot of you are hearing about this. I know it was posted in here, but without the context behind it. If you guys do have questions and want to send them to me by, say, next Monday, I'll send out an email before, I send them off to Brian, and then him and his staff can kind of prepare some more. I know sometimes with something like this, you just might want to think about it, or you might have an afterthought, and since it is a first reading, no action is required, but I want to make sure you guys get the answers that you might have if you're not thinking of them right now. But right now, are there any other questions or points for discussion? Peter, do you want to share you were in the meetings, you're part of the discussion.
Adam covered it well. I'm in full support. Yeah.
Melissa,
For brevity's
anything
sake.
that you're thinking of, or?
No, just, to add on what, Adam was saying, retention and retaining teachers is, it's gonna be a challenge, so whatever we can do, looking at it in different perspectives, I was like, me as a parent, I guess it depends on the child's age. I would love, as I do now, my schedule is the same as my kid's schedule in terms, of the school, because we're in the same town, which is fantastic. I was having panic attacks thinking in the future, what if they have a snow day and I don't have a snow day, and what's going to happen? Now, whether that child really wants to go to a different district, because like you said, it might be right next door, but obviously that's a conversation that they're going to have, you know, with their kid to make the best decision. So I think it's a great attempt to do something positive.
So I will set up an email to send out to remind you. I will auto send it, so it will automatically send just to remind everyone to send their questions, and then I can forward those off and we can try and get some answers if anyone has any. But thank you for your contributions, everyone who spoke. All right, moving on to item G, the status of the Board of Education adopted budget. So Brian is going to provide the update of the adopted budget, and this is where we'll talk about the potential cuts that were developed in the committee. So
I know this
Peter
is,
and Adam have anything
I know
to
this
share?
is also on Schoology, but I did make a paper copy. Pass it over. Is there two there? There's two there. You have it?
Yeah, I'm
You
good.
have Schoology? Okay, great. So
anyone
it's the
need a
copy.
paper copy?
Anyone else want one? Here you go. Here's some copies if you want them. Anyone else here want a few more? Here.
Yeah,
Julia, here's a few more if they want them.
Anyone else?
So looking at the budget with the 2.75% increase for the Board of Finance, which will go to the referendum, we need to cut $1,853,000 that of the proposed budget increases. And typically when we make those cuts, and as we share with the F&O committee, we look to straddle across administration, teachers, non-affiliated positions, programming, different school levels. We try to look at positions that people are retiring in, so we're not losing a person, we're losing a position, because it really speaks to the recruitment and retention. When people see that you're losing teachers every year, the ability to attract teachers becomes less. So these were the discussions points that we had. The two administrators that you have in the top portion, again, you know, I need to look at the FT at McGee. The Dean of Students position is tied in there. And the other position and I know there was a outcry from the public as well as some of the board last year, but I still have to propose it here, and that could be something to discuss. The other position, unfortunately, is Jeff Cugno's position here. That is our operations manager, handles all of security, all construction, handles transportation, and custodians. So there's a lot of pieces there that would need to be then parceled out to different members here currently at central office. But to think that we're going to cut teaching positions and cut sports programs and cut ESS, and that there can't be that there's not administration in the cut, I think that becomes difficult, and that's how it's been every year that we made cuts. BHS core teacher, looks like we really need another science teacher. We're going to try to make do without a science teacher. It may be that we have to pay a teacher additional section, but there's a core teacher at the high school, which most likely will be science. That could change. Elementary, grade 4, cutting one grade 4 teacher, which means class sizes will be up. They'll probably be up around 23 or 24 at that time at grade 4. The elementary teacher at Griswold, that's a K teacher at Griswold. We have a teacher retiring, and we had an open position in K at Willard in the 4th. So again, cutting the position, not a person. The K teacher is retiring, so that leaves that position open. We don't know what numbers will be like. We've also had an extra K teacher, which we usually do in the budget. We've also reduced that position. So if the numbers swell, we could have an issue with size, you know, with the number of students in the kindergarten at Griswold. We also reduced 0.5. Typically, the K classrooms have a half paraprofessional, a half-time paraprofessional in the K classrooms. Because we're reducing a teacher, we reduced the 0.5 paraprofessional. New staff request, that was the K position that we usually hold. We reduced that. The office assistant, we reduced the full office assistant at the high school last year. We really couldn't make do without that. We also had someone out on FMLA. We had to add a part-time office assistant at the high school. We're looking to reduce that despite the need for it. You know, these are not positions we're saying, you know, we just don't need them. It's that when you're looking to cut in our budget where 81% is staffing, you really have to go after staffing. You'll see the other cuts are going after the equipment and supplies. freshman sports program, there's 3 freshman sports teams at the high school. It's almost $16,000. We'd reduce those freshman sports programs. Elementary clubs, a little under 1,500. Again, the thought is that we don't just look at one school, we look across the across all levels. ESS at the middle school, it's 1 clinician. It's been funded through the ESSER grant for the last 2 years. Obviously, the ESSER grant has expired. We do need that program, but we're again looking to find some funds. And the last one I think is a huge impact to students. McGee Sports. To think that students won't have as much to do after school at the middle school at that level, I think is difficult. But I also think that we've already cut it into the instructional core with teachers. We've cut into administration. There's not other areas to cut. And when I get down to the others, you'll see all other expenditures, $57,000. The benefits, even though we're looking at 12% is what the town is saying this year, it's usually 10, and we come in around 7 or 8. But the medical, they're saying is going to be 12. Contracted services, we can't really go more than that because that's tied back into a lot of our power school, a lot of the systems that we use. The entire equipment budget has been wiped out. That means that's supply budgets and the supply budget right below it. Equipment, that's all the technology that we don't have a replacement cycle. We've totally diminished that. Supplies, we did have each level getting a small increase. This will be the 5th year that the buildings have not had a supply increase. The only building that would get a supply increase would be McGee. McGee's been underfunded. They were funded lower than the elementary schools, so we're giving them a little more. But to think for 5 years there's not been a supply increase with inflation is difficult. The same ream of paper cost almost double what it did cost, 5 years ago. Transportation, Ashley was able to shave a little off transportation. Tuition, we had 2 unanticipated placements in there, meaning if a student was expelled or a special education student had to be outplaced. We had 2 in there for almost $200,000. We've taken both of them out of the budget to save the money. And utilities, we're able to save, we think, $20,000. Just saying we'll project a little less, and hopefully, cross our fingers, it'll work out. So, those were the tiered cuts that the Board of the F&O committee here was shared. I did talk to the F&O committee. This has been shared with the public. I definitely preface sharing to the public that it's potential cuts that needed to come to you this evening. So none of this is carved in stone at all. It's a discussion amongst the whole board, and you can guide me in if you like other reductions or you're not in favor of any of these, and we can come up with alternatives. Other alternatives: ESS at Berlin High School JV sports, all secondary clubs, and you can see what the difference would be. Obviously, there could be many other alternatives if people have other thoughts on reductions.
So we'll open it up to the board for discussion. Peter or Adam, would you like to start out and share anything? Peter as chair of the committee, or Adam as member?
Much to add. I mean, we've discussed the potential cuts here, and that's what we worked on and tentatively agreed on.
I can't hear you, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
I'm sorry. I said I don't have much to add in regards to the cuts here. We discussed it at F&O, and this is what we kind of reached. So I'm just open to discussion.
This is the worst part about sitting here, quite frankly, every year, having to go through and look at cuts, people, positions, because once you cut something, it's difficult to ever get it back. And we've talked about this year after year. It's unfortunate that that we're here again and looking at all these programs. Essential. There's not one line here that's not essential, and it's unfortunate that living in this town that we're not garnering the support that I think that we've earned. And I'm not saying that we anticipated getting the full 6.39%, but I think 2.75 is a bit of a slap in the face for all the work and all the success the district has had. If you want to talk about scores, the scores are sky high. You want to talk about the programs, the extracurriculars, the plays, the musicals, the technology, everything that we've excelled in is now on the chopping block, and it's sad. I really have nothing further to say other than I'm disappointed. I'm hoping people turn out and vote.
I hate the fact that our ESS is on the chopping block, especially when I see all the cuts and everything, and, you know, like we always bring up the pandemic, we're just coming out. We're just starting to see that light from all the crap we've been through, and our students more, talking about them being through. It's disappointing, and I guess people who feel this way maybe never have had to have issues with their children. And, I don't know. I know that I think it was a real slap in the face how low it came in. That was like, I mean, I knew it was going to get cut, but when I saw it, I was like, wow. Tell us what you really think. Sorry. Was that too much?
No, I think that ESS was a hard one, right? Because initially when it came into us, both programs were on it. And I think the discussion of the committee was, well, ESS at the high school has been there for a long time. It's established. It's a part of the school. It's something that they rely on. The middle school ESS was funded through the ESSER, and the ESSER is running out. And so I think when we think greatest impact to students, least impact to students, this will in fact have an impact to students. However, when looking at both, I think cutting both would be detrimental. And I think cutting the high school program, which, how many clinicians do we have there? Two? Okay, 2 clinicians, that would be a much bigger impact. I know people don't like when we touch sports, but I think just touching ESS and not considering any extracurricular activities is also unfair. I think that when we look at it, we try to look at, okay, we need to make sure it's fairly distributed and one place isn't taking a harder hit than another. That's the unfortunate truth. And like Adam said, this is the hardest part about sitting here, and I think that's one of the one of our greatest challenges in the committee is having these conversations and coming up with this list first. It's not easy. And I agree. I think, as someone who works with students, like the struggles that they are having, and whether people want to believe it or not, the struggles that students are having post-pandemic are greater now than ever before. The challenges that I'm seeing, in a neighboring district, I'm sure they're very, very similar here, are what I would never imagine to be facing in my teaching career ever. And some days I leave incredibly frustrated just at the overall system, the pandemic, the behaviors that students have developed, or the lack of habits, and it makes it challenging. And I think any cuts, whether it's extracurricular or in school, that are going to impact kids are going to make the jobs harder, those who are still there. And I think it's just really, really tough. I will say this school year is hard, and a lot of people are seeing, the aftermath more so than they have before. And, the kids are struggling, the teachers are struggling, the staff are struggling, and I think any further cuts are just going to increase those struggles. And
Can we get therapy dogs?
no, we're gonna get therapy cats for Anusha and Ian. We discussed that. We'll have a different set of challenges with cats. But I don't know.
Thank you for all the work, though, that you guys did put into really thinking about the cuts. I know it's a tough subject to think about, so you guys did. Appreciate it.
There were 2 meetings that we have had since the last meeting. We don't want to take away anything that's going to impact kids. We don't want to take away anyone's livelihood. We don't want to, have to drive things down. But I don't know. It's there. This is what we have, and this is what we have to make do with. Do you want to share? You look like you're on the.
I mean, I'm not going to repeat what Adam said because I agree with all of it, and he said it so well. But it's definitely insulting when you go in with a 6.39 and come back with a 2.75. So I appreciate all the work that the committee did, and I know that's not an easy thing to put a list together like this. But having said that, the few things that come to the top of my list that I have some huge concerns about are the Dean of Students at McGee, the paras positions, and the ESS, and also the equipment piece is huge. I think when you start to step down from staying in technology, in the advanced world we're in with technology, and you don't do those replacement cycles, I think that's dangerous. And that's going to catch up to us.
Yeah, have at it.
So I think after seeing this second piece, which is, quite frankly, this is even less than my savings account interest rate. Right?
I'm glad you know that.
Yeah. When there are hundreds of students around me who are constantly putting in hours and hours of their effort in every single thing that they do, whether they be academics or their own passions, like with Anusha and I's anti-malarial research with UConn, or being up here with the board, or my work with Upbeat, or with the newspaper, or just generally in town. And as a student, when I see this number, it's kind of like, it's disregarding all of your accomplishments, both academic and extracurricular, and connections with your teachers who, and staff and everyone who puts the absolute utmost effort into everything that they do. And they know going into this field that it is not going to be ever high paying, right? It's never going to be the salary of, let's say, a politician or a doctor. They do this because this is what they love, and the students recognize this, and I know a lot of them do. Again, not only through their academics, but through their extracurriculars, and the hundreds of hours that everyone puts in. I have access to some of our Upbeat students' service hours, and I see upwards of 300 service hours done. I see upwards of 200 done in a year, which I think is incredible and amazing. But when I see a number like this, when I see these cuts and how this will impact not only teachers, but the relationship students have with the field of public education, where we're trying to foster these students who want to become teachers, who want to become educators, that's never gonna happen, right? And not only are we are recognized in the facts of awards and just of general announcements, but really to go beyond that, to develop something even greater, even better, even more impactful, we need a number higher than this. And I think we all understand that, right? So I think coming from a student, it's quite frankly disappointing to see, and just something that will never be feasible for probably the next 1 or 2 years.
I think you bring up a great point, and I think, all over the news this year, it's constantly, I'm reading about it daily, the increase in college applicants and how schools have seen record-breaking numbers and how much more competitive schools are getting because of that. And then by, eliminating opportunities, that eliminates their chance of pursuing competitive post-secondary education.
And plus, once you get rid of it, it really hardly ever comes back.
And I think we were able to do a lot with the ESSER because we were aware that it was coming, there was going to be a cliff with it. And I think last year with the agreement that we had with the Board of Finance of putting certain things on ESSER, knowing it was coming to an end, we did what we intended not to do with an agreement, knowing that we were doing it. But ESSER had allowed us to bring more enrichment to our students, and that is, those days are gone.
I'm going to comment real quick. I'm quite jealous of my kids' school experience that they had here in Berlin, because it was the experience I would have loved to have had, and I think it's what makes Berlin unique, and the community feel that the kids come out with, that it's apparent in what Ian said and what I see all my kids' peers. And I'm about to be out of the school system with my kids, and I will still continue to want to be involved in it because that's the kind of school system it is. And I do think these cuts take away from that holistic feel. And your point to the competitiveness of college is something I'm very, very much aware of at this moment in time. And I can tell you right now, I think a lot of kids, have done as much as they can possibly, and they're still struggling to get into some institutions. So, you want Berlin to continue to elevate and be what it is. And I'm talking not to you folks, you're here because you care about this. I'm talking to the folks that, maybe don't have kids in the school system anymore, or never did here in Berlin. But Berlin is a good place to live because it's rooted in a foundational school system that actually has a vibe and a spirit. And I'm jealous that my kids got to go through that school system. So.
That, strong schools are, equal strong towns. There's a strong correlation between having a good school system and having a good town. In a sense of community, in a more practical sense of property values and the quality of the town, they go hand in hand. And I think the most frustrating part of this process is trying to work with the other side and not really having them recognize that. The school and the district is part of the town. The two mutually benefit from one another. It's not two separate entities vying for control or finances separately. It's one whole picture, and the school and town, work together. But the frustrating part is that the board tends to get treated with derision. Like at our joint meeting, it's supposed to be an opportunity to kind of discuss what we need, what the town needs. I mean, I recognize that the town has other things to balance versus our needs, bonded debt, et cetera, and so on. But when you have a meeting that mainly focuses on picking out minor inconsistencies or complaining about a certain slide or graph or the way it's designed that we've included in a presentation is just a waste of time and just basically insulting to the entire process.
Any other discussion? Okay. We will continue this after the referendum and once we know what our number is. Okay, so social media, I can turn this over to Tracy and Brian, but the Community Engagement Committee would like to have a discussion and gain a better understanding of the board's beliefs regarding how social media should be used by the Board of Ed, so.
So we've been in discussion about our social media because it's like so popular and there's so many people that like it. So sarcastic because they don't. And so a few years ago when we had when the whole pandemic, we actually had people engage more on. We do the book of Faces. Hello, Facebook. That's what we're using, and we had more engagement. The biggest one was graduation. Other than that, we kind of took a hiatus because people just weren't interested, and it is a lot to keep posting and posting. And I know Nick was awesome; he kept giving us stuff to throw out there. And we wanted to take, when we originally did this, it was like a few years ago, to give the back history really, really quick. A few years ago, nobody wanted to do it. It was kind of like everybody's doing social media. We voted, and it was like, it kept getting turned down every year. We finally get it approved, making sure comments are turned off so it's not a negative environment. It's strictly about our students, our schools, the positive things that are happening, factual and positive. And no negativity on it because anyone can spin anything. So we turned off comments. And that's what we did. No engagement really, except for graduation. Comments were turned on for that one, which I didn't know, but they were all positive. So we stay away from the gossip sites for the town and whatnot. And so we kind of revamped up the Facebook, and we have 4 people, the same 4 people like all the posts. So thank you for that. And it's, yes, there is an algorithm with social media. We do know we have to post like 3 to 4 times a week. You have to be more engaging. It's got to have videos. There's a lot to become part of an algorithm with social media. So the question we have is, do we really want to continue this? Or do we just kind of want to fizz-a-zizzle it out? There is a lot of information out there. So it's not just from us. You get it from Upbeat. You get it from the arts department. We are reposting what's already out there. Does that make sense? Brian, you want to add?
I think the biggest thing is we talked about isn't relevant to do it. Is it reaching the right people? Is it reaching enough people? And the other question was really, what should we be posting that's not duplication of the schools? And that's why I put some examples here. We talked about pizza wars, state tournament games, upbeat breakfast, musicals, concerts, capsules, things that would reach the entire educational community, but also reach the greater Berlin community. And that was the discussion to say, how does the board feel about, one, is Facebook the right tool? And the other piece is, are these the right items to be posting on there? A student receives an award, a group of students receive an award for the district. Yes, it might be posted on the school specific, but should it be posted as a district? So is there a way? The other part is, are we kind of hamstrung to getting it out? Like when we had the Berlin Citizen, we got it out to the greater community beyond the schools. We really don't have a vehicle to do that at this present time. And what could we find to do that? But if not, is it worth doing this on Facebook at a limited basis was the other discussion. So I don't know if that's, Tracy, if that helps, but.
Yeah, no, that's about it.
I think once we get rid of it, if we were to go that route, and then say something occurs where we do want that vehicle again, remaking it is going to be a pain in,
Well,
it's a lot to bring it back.
It's still there. It's not like, it's just hanging out there. Like, it's just there. We don't have to delete it, deactivate it, because it's just there. It's
Right.
Just a,
Right, but if it's not getting used the way it should be free of what we'll see, then it's not a benefit to us
and that's
in the future.
a lot for, we have Nick, who is very helpful in sending stuff, but that's not really part of his job forte to do that. And it's a lot of volunteer work and stuff like that, so we have to take and consider. I don't know many people that are like throwing their hands up, like, oh, let me do it, right, Adam?
Not even on Facebook.
I know you're not a social media
Not
person.
social media. Though I do like Instagram.
I do too.
Whenever I see all the awards, the scores, and everything. I'll be honest with you, I thought the best thing that we ever had was the articles in the Berlin Citizen.
I agree.
It got the widest smart, and it was topical, it was relevant, it was current, it's what people needed, and I thought that was the best thing. Honestly, I look at Instagram because it's mostly at the high school level, for whether it's the band program, the arts, the different sports teams. Everyone seems to have their own, and I look at it all, and I see all the awards and the scores and things like that. That's great for me. But
That's
Facebook,
what everybody does right now.
yeah.
They don't need the actual, I'm not saying we don't do it, but you're right. You're looking at what maybe your students or what you're interested in with their schools, right? And
Yep.
you're looking at those specifics that are covered all over Instagram. And they're also covered on Facebook. But that's what you're looking at. So we would just be a repetitive of what we're already looking at. And I think our key, though, is the greater community. That's what we were trying to reach with it. Like, the parents, we were seeing it. It was how are we reaching the entire community. And unfortunately, the Citizen was our best avenue.
So my question is what if we use that as like a replacement of the Citizen,
We talked
and
about that.
we write a weekly or bi-weekly blog post, link it up to the website. Once it's on the website, then post it up to the Facebook, and then that would reach more members of the community. And whether a little money needs to be spent to boost it, make it a sponsored post, kind of like the New Britain Herald does or the Berlin Citizen does. It doesn't cost much money to do that, but that way, if the Citizen isn't going to run the columns that are intentionally written to be run, because you send them off and then they just go
The
into
Citizen's
the
not even the Citizen anymore.
right. So I think that could be like a grassroots effort of trying to engage with the community. And then I know I was also at that meeting. If we are, if board members are at certain things, Melissa and I were at the PTO meeting last week, and here are some board members doing this, or Day on the Hill, or, the Central Connecticut Adult Workshop, getting some pictures of board members and just writing, this is where we were at, this is what we're doing, and, showing us out in the community, representing the board. That was one of my suggestions, rather than just reposting what every other page is posting, because then it's not relevant, it's not, you're seeing it 3 other places. Peter?
I do think that, you either update the page appropriately or you delete it, because I think no page is better than a page that's outdated, because it reflects a lack of engagement, and it reflects poorly. In terms of engagement, yes, I agree with the citizen, although the citizen has changed, and I don't know how cooperative they'll be. In terms of Facebook and social media engagement, it's a double-edged sword. You can stay in your own forum on your Berlin district page, but you're not going to have engagement. You can go out into the wilds of the Berlin Buzz or the Berlin Talks, but of course you also run the risk of extremely negative, irrelevant, and just rude commentary. So you got to weigh the odds. I think that perhaps having more engagement on other Facebook forums that the town actually uses would be positive if we kept it in pretty neutral realm, i.e. sharing the scores of games that have gone on, or sharing progress of sharing events that are going on, or what we would otherwise have posted on our own forum page. But again, that comes with its own pros and cons. And also, I'm not sure if you can have that same type of control on the forum wherein you can turn off the comments when you post, where it's just kind of like, bam, it's an announcement, or not.
Who else would like to share their 2 cents?
I think we should try what you laid out, and I'd be happy to help with that.
So is the overarching question, go big or go home? Is that really what I'm hearing?
Kinda, but it's also like, what are your thoughts? Like, this is the first time we're bringing it to the board from committee.
I just think in the discussion, when it's something coming from high school, it's high school parents that follow its high school students. So to me, the board needs to get, as we said, the greater community. So like if you're having a musical, there's no reason why the musical or a team makes a state title. There may be people in the community that would enjoy going to those events because state title's a big deal. The musical we do at such a high level. I think we have to me, the parents know a lot of what's going on and recognize it, and students know how to get on social media. It's a greater community that doesn't know enough about the schools and the things that are going on. So that's why when we talked about originally, what might be relevant to others outside the community to see, does it matter who the valedictorian and salutatorian are? Maybe they know those individuals, those that make National Honor Society. Yes, it goes to the high school, but would the greater community be interested in that? I don't know. I'm asking the question is, because to me, you're painting a picture of the values of the school district, right? These are the things that, when it comes from the board, these are things that the board values and they feel are proud of the district for, like they're the accomplishments. I mean, or with the paper was, these are critical issues that we want the greater community to be aware of. So there always was a budget piece, but there definitely was one about new programs we're bringing into the district, or things that are different from when they went to school, or things that, where the district is stressing the importance at the time. So,
I think one conversation we keep having is like, what's great in Berlin Public Schools? We added 2 slides, 3 slides to the budget presentation about that. I think this could be a real opportunity to showcase that with it, being intentional, not just reposting things that are already posted, but like finding engaging ways of posting what is great in our schools. And then maybe like making a Berlin Board of Ed blog and.
There needs to be a narrative that goes with it.
Right.
But they're not in it.
It has to be different than what the high school's posting. It just can't be a repost.
Correct.
It could be similar content. But I think, keeping in mind our audience, which is the community, engaging the community in the posts, I think is important. Melissa, any thoughts?
No, I think I just agree with you, and like we said, obviously the citizen was our, best in terms of greater community. So it's just kind of repeating in that sense. I don't see the harm in presenting the information like you said, whether it's a column, monthly, weekly. We can try it, take a look at the traction. As Tracy said, it's obviously limited use. It also, we talked in committee, you know, maybe with all the different social medias, I know it could be a further discussion. Maybe if it's not through Facebook, maybe that's kind of, you know, we're moving into something else here, talking about Instagram. So I think an effort can be made without it being overwhelming, because like we said, it's voluntary and we don't want to keep repeating what's already out there, but we want it to be relevant and present it.
So I'm not sure I understand the distinction about what's posted where, because I don't really engage too much with social media. And also I can't learn another social media, so Facebook is where I died. But I know there's a ton of great content I've seen since my son's been involved in high school that is like, you know, clips of plays, clips of sporting events, or those types of things that really sort of, I think, emphasize the community that we all spoke about when we were talking about the budget. And I'm not sure if that's what we're talking about and that's allowable, but I mean, that's the type of stuff. We have a wonderful media department, you know, that's award winning. I mean, let's use that to our advantage to the point possible. I mean, I know, you know, there was the cereal challenge video. There's all these videos that I've seen, and I don't know how they get out there. And, you know, and that was a great, you know, a donation to the food bank, but in a fun way. And I don't know if that ever came to fruition, I got to admit, but I saw the video. So, I mean, those are the things that I think could get people, it's got to be creative, right? And then people can look and see the other stuff that's germane to them and, I guess, go big. That's what I mean, and or go home. I don't know if that's what anybody else was envisioning, but
Yeah, there's already a lot of content out there that we could repost. I mean, we've talked about that too, and then using that as sort of a starter, and then what else can we do for the narrative?
Okay. Well, that gives us some good information. Thank you. Moving on to the discussion of board policy 5131.81, the use of private technology devices by students. This item was requested by Peter, Melissa, Jen, and Gina for the board to discuss. So, Brian, I'll turn that over to you.
I just want to make sure that all board members are aware there is a policy about use of technology that's currently in place. Whether that's being adhered to the greatest extent that or not, the policy is attached to you. But what I did ask is I asked Principal Urso and Principal Menta to be here just to talk to you a little bit about what's currently going on for practices in their schools and what their intentions are moving forward for next year. So Mr. Urso and Mrs. Menta, if you guys can come forward, that'd be great. I know Mrs. Menta even has a prop to show you here, so.
I thought that was a little wine cooler or something.
There's gonna be a long one.
Mr. Urso, if you want to start with McGee.
Sure. So if you look at the policy, our procedures or our rules are more restrictive than the policy. So it's in our handbook on page 14. It's published. I didn't bring a copy, but I could get those for you. Basically, cell phones, earbuds, smart watches, any other devices aren't allowed during the school day, so they should be off and they should be in students' lockers. So if we see them, then the first offense, we will take the phone during the day. It gets turned over to administration. A couple of years ago, we bought it's called a cell phone locker. So it's like a small, tiny little locker. It's got 10, not quite like this, but it's got 10 little lockers with a key on it. We show the students where it goes. We put a magnet on with the name of the student, and we take the key and we put it away, and it's locked up in there. So the second time, we ask parents to come and pick up the phone. Any other infractions after that, we'll give them a consequence, including the loss of privilege to bring a cell phone to school. And then there's a whole list of, it's recommended you don't bring any device or anything electronic because they lose their earbuds, they misplace their watch, things just get lost. So We also do send out multiple times a year that we do, in fact, the law says that we can search phones if there's something there that we think is reasonable to look for, because our cell phones, honestly, we don't really have a problem at school. The problem with the cell phones is what happens at home, and it comes into school and becomes very costly, very time-consuming, lots of hurt feelings. But as far as like physical with phones, we really don't have a big problem. Not kids using them during school, because we do that. They do hide them in their hoods. So there's many ways around hiding your phone, but for the most part, that's what we do.
It never said you're not supposed to have them. They're not supposed to be seen or heard throughout the day, and if they are, this is what happens. And it's worked fairly well for, a couple
Yeah,
of
I'm not
kids.
going to sit up here and tell you it's 100%.
No,
Kids,
it's worked
there's
fairly
a
well. That's
reason
why I
why
said
we have the
fairly well.
rules.
Right.
We catch them once in a while, but there's no meetups in the bathroom. When we have the phones, you don't get meetups in the bathroom like we used, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, or right after the pandemic. It was really hard, which is why we put more restrictive than the actual policy in place.
This is
So at the high school, as you can imagine, it's not as restrictive. Naturally, older students, an older audience, and we have some more autonomy. However, our student handbook does state very similar policy in that cell phones should be away, out of sight during class time. Now, at the high school level, at times teachers use cell phones for educational purposes, so in labs or reporting. If they're doing a project and collaborating and they're going around the hall and taking photos of something. So there is an educational purpose for cell phones, but the conversation right now is really about engagement. And of course there's safety concerns, and we have the concerns too with students meeting up and things of that nature. But truly at the high school level, it's about engagement. And the temptation of having that device, the potential research behind being addicted to that device and that dopamine response as soon as every time you have to check it. And that really impacts the classroom, and I don't think our young people quite really understand that or know that just yet. And additionally, as we know, with each passing day, there's more and more temptations through AI on that cell phone as well. So there, of course, could be academic integrity implications involved with that, as we've seen, at the high school as well. So, this here is a model 5.0. I borrowed this from a classroom teacher who implemented this through his own pursuit to engage his students at the beginning of this school year. And so what you don't see here are the cool lights that he actually has on them, and he has another feature too where you can plug it in and the phones can charge. But he made it a mission at the beginning of this school year to embrace his students with, we're going to do this, and when you get here, at the beginning of class, you're going to put your cell phone in your assigned number. They're all numbered here. And when we transition or need a break, that's an appropriate time for you to go grab your phone, right? Give it a quick check and then plug it back in when we get back to business. And for him, if he were here, he would say it completely changed the entire environment of his room, and for the better, for the positive. And so there's been lots of conversation last year for the last few years about, where do we go with this at the high school level? I know teachers, Evelise is here, she can speak to this as well. We've had a group of teachers come together at the end of last school year who wanted a committee and, wanted support with banning cell phones. And we felt, well, that feels a little bit strong at this point since we do use them for educational purposes as well. But I think we're at a little bit of a crossroad right now, and starting next school year, if we decide to go in a direction where every classroom has a uniform structure as such. I don't think these are two. This teacher bought this with his own money. He had another one that he got on Amazon, it was a little cheaper, and he didn't really like that quality. But if we have a similar uniform, structure as such in every classroom, then it has that all encompassing community feel that this is just what we do, and this is how we engage with technology, and this is when it's appropriate, and this is how I'm going to engage with my teacher and my classmates without being completely distracted throughout, the class period. And of course, from there, if we go in this direction, then it will also enhance other safety features too and concerns that we do have time to time in the high school with students meeting up and perhaps planning some in-between class gatherings and chats. I'll leave it at that. Yeah. Are there questions about this structure?
I just, because having been in the high school, I've seen some of the teachers actually have, it's almost like, some of the hangs, are just little pouches.
Right,
And
the
so is it
sleeves.
up to every teacher at this point now, whether the phones are with the student or without the student?
So I'm going to be transparent. I think what happened for years is that we left it up to every individual teacher. It's a big school. There's lots of teachers. So teacher A might feel, you know what, just put it away. I'll just say, out of mind, I'm not going to use anything of this nature. And then the next teacher in that student's schedule has this rule in their classroom, and that causes some confusion, right? And so I think we're at a point now where we need to make a move as a community, a school community, and as building leaders, this is our conversation in all. I don't want to say or nothing, but we may all need to move in this direction and make this a bit more uniform, so that's just part of our day-to-day. Yeah.
So they'd be locked up every class?
So this does have a lock feature, and we would assign, since they're numbered, every student would be assigned a number, so you know where your phone belongs. And essentially, whether this is locked or not locked, it goes right on the shelf. So I'm thinking of this particular classroom. It's in clear sight for everyone to see, so it's not, anyone just can't walk up and grab, but the teacher does lock it.
So there's no we can't have backpacks next year?
We have not crossed that bridge entirely just yet, publicly, but we're talking about it. Mm-hmm.
It's just not
So-
out.
Mm.
It's not
Surprise!
Surprise, now it's out.
Was it in a conversation?
No.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
We'll
it
talk
was.
tomorrow.
It's not- now it's out.
We're still having backpacks with rollers now. What's the time? So my kid's gonna leave the class and he's gonna grab his wait in line to get his phone.
Well, I think some of that needs to have discussion. So the teachers who use this right now, and a lot of teachers have their own system right now, they build it in. So the last 2 minutes in transition and closure and whatnot, they say,
So
all
it
right,
would
go
be,
grab
like,
your.
added to the
Oh,
end of the-
absolutely. It's just
So
it's
they're
pretty
not running
informal.
down, okay.
No.
And what I like about that versus the shoe holder on the door is if there's a fire drill or an emergency evacuation, you pick it up and take it with you.
Correct.
Does it have a charger on the back?
Some do. Yeah,
Some
do.
actually do, yeah.
The other, I don't know why this one doesn't, but the other one that the same teacher has a charger. Charging ports. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, I know there was conversation at the state level. Someone sent me some articles last week, starting, with the governor talking about completely banning cell phones.
I think that's great.
I support it.
Would they get their phone during lunch?
Yes. Yep, this is just instructional time. So study halls, students would have their phones, but it's really trying to teach and cultivate a culture of respect and engagement and just, being present in class and not so distracted.
Do they have to get rid of their headphones too?
So the earbuds are
earbuds,
technically in policy, right? The earbuds technically in policy. Students should not have them out during class. Some do. Again, some students actually have needs where they're written into their plans where they can listen to music if they're working quietly. So that's a hard all or nothing move on that part. But
But all this is already in the policy. and
Correct.
So the board would not have to come up with a new policy.
No.
So I have a question that's going to sound like a joke, but
Sure.
it's not. Does that thing ring like a pinball machine during class?
So
Because
that-
there's like.
So I will say that in speaking with this particular teacher, though that's not an issue, but I will say in speaking with another teacher who just had an issue last week with the sleeve, that when you say, all right, everyone put them in your sleeve, and they're not assigned or numbered, and someone says, oh, I don't have my phone today, and then, oh, we're going to be funny and call all the phones in the sleeve. Yes, that happens, but by being very specific, you can see whose phone is not in their allotted sleeve. As silly as that sounds, that's very real.
Kind of proposal moving forward, and I like all the points you touched on, because I think that it needs to purely be during instructional time. It doesn't need to be an outright ban. When the student comes into the room, they lock up the phone. And under current policy, I think that, you know, the monitoring and trying to see if a student's using the phone they may or may not have in their possession, it's not an effective use of the teacher's instructional time.
Right.
And it's just not consistent. And that's not a jab at any administrator or teacher, it's just reality. But looking at the policy, would we need to amend this in a way that specifically states, you know, students in the district will not be in possession of their cell phone in classroom or during instructional time, and then have administration apply it in whatever way they're going to do?
When the policy was written, the issue was that in some classes, they actually want the students to use the cell phones, like in the science classes and so on. You use as probes and certain things they would use it with. So if we could do that, we'd have to make sure we have another device there for them to use, not their cell phones. That's why it's written in a way without, you know, that there needs to be permission to use it in the classroom. I just want to just say another thing. I know this question about the backpacks, the cell phones. I just think we want to be careful, and 2 students are here. There's certain things that, you know, are safety, certain things are distraction from learning, and so on, but how fast we ramp things up and make changes in the high school at once. Just knowing that students, freshmen are not used to this, so it may be fine come from McGee. But students who have been there for 3 years are used to X, and now you no longer have that. And I'll let the students speak if you want. They're both smiling at me, so, you know, it is a change. And I can speak to when we had the cell phones at McGee years ago, they were much bigger, you know, and so on. Some of the parents are concerned that they want their child to have their cell phone for an emergency. Now, whether we want to believe that or not, that parents did express that concern, and it wasn't just a few, it was many. That's where the whole notion of it's not to be seen or heard. And then the whole piece of if a parent, you know, they have their cell phone, they have access to their cell phone, it's just not to be seen or heard because you're here to learn. So that's why it was you know, set up that way. And I just, if we do adopt something that's more stringent, where they don't have them all throughout the day, they don't have access, we will have parents, I just want the board, we will have parents that will say, I want my child to have my cell phone, it's a safety concern. Whether we believe it or not, we just have to be ready to address that if that's the case.
So that would be my only, when you said that, I'm 1,000,000% behind getting rid of them. Like, I think there's not one good thing that comes from a cell phone, not one, in school environment, unless my kids are texting me to pick them up for, can they go to the gym, or can they go to so-and-so's house, which is almost every single day. So I do know that their phones are out, because my kids text me every day during school. And I believe instruction, especially coming after what we've come after, and we're really trying to focus on our children right now, I think it's a great idea. But I'm for it, you got me, I'm there, it's fine. But what Brian said, I do think we're gonna have combat, because my first thought, what if something happened? That is the first thing, when you did this, the first split second was, what if something happens? Like in the school, that rarity that we all think about, what if my kid doesn't have his phone? That's the first thing that came to my mind. But I do believe that our teachers, I believe everybody's distracted by it. And I think that our children will be better off learning if they weren't distracted by it. I know you guys probably hate that, but I just think that.
So, you know, I did teach during one of those rare emergency situations. It was probably 4 years ago, maybe. There was a bomb threat at my school, and when the fire drill was pulled, we didn't know it was a bomb threat. And if I thought it was just a regular in and out fire drill, and I had collected phones, I probably wouldn't be giving them back. Or if I knew it wasn't just a regular fire drill, I certainly wouldn't be letting kids go to their lockers to get them. We sat outside on the tennis court for 4 hours. Social media went nuts. We had the bomb squad at our school. We knew nothing what was going on other than we could not go back in the school, and we were outside on the tennis court for hours on end. And I'm gonna tell you, the parents were going nuts, like, because what was happening on Facebook, you know, what they were hearing, and it was important for parents to know that their kids were safe. And so when I look at something like this and moving towards something more strict, I just think back to that, and thank goodness they have their phones, because as a parent, I could not imagine not getting a response from my child hearing there's a bomb threat at my child's school.
But you
And
can
then
just
what?
take that outside.
Right, exactly. You just bring that out with you, and that's that. And so I think, you know, there's got to be something, you know, but I do think, like, if a teacher is doing a Kahoot or an exit ticket with a QR code, or, you know, go around and take pictures of this or do something like that, you do want that flexibility. And so I think the current board policy addresses it, and then I think in the respective school handbooks, you go further and reference the board policy, which I'm sure it already does.
Mm-hmm.
But that's my 2 cents. What do you think?
So in the event of an emergency, teachers and administrators would be able to contact, there's probably a.
But parents don't have my number unless the kids have been on an overnight trip with me, and I don't have their numbers.
But don't they have like a group, like when we
School
send out
messenger.
a send out
So
a
in
whole
an event of
message.
an emergency, there's school
Right,
messenger.
so what I'm saying is, and I hear your point, because that's the big,
Yeah.
that's gonna be the biggest pushback, is the safety feature. But at the end of the day, it's not, the teachers and the administrators will still be able to have access to their phones. Obviously, they're the teachers, as my daughter would say. I'm the teacher, you know, you're the student, right? I mean, the students shouldn't be hanging out on their phones all day and teachers trying to teach them. It's
Oh, I
just
agree with that.
absolutely
Yes.
crazy.
I think you'll have
What's
pushback,
going
but
on.
I think once everybody gets used to it, I think it'll be okay.
Well, I will share the teacher who shared this, did a student survey feedback form, and the students actually responded very positively about feeling more engaged in the class after he implemented it. So
That's awesome.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. I think they
And the
want-
first time
they
he
want the
implemented it
boundaries.
was mid-year last school year, so it wasn't at the beginning of the year, and he just said, we have to try something.
Yeah.
So,
I think the time is on us.
Yeah.
Something's got to be done, and if it's going to start, and if the state is going to move towards elementary schools having to do something about it, it's the time, and somebody's got to be first one through the wall and having to deal with this. It's here. The kids are addicted to them. I talked to many high school kids. I was getting interviewed by one for a school project, and he couldn't put his phone away. And I literally was like, we're doing this. This is going away. But every time he was like, and I'm like, I almost said his name, but you all know. But I was like, no, focus. So it's time. It's time. And I will stand by that.
and there'll be loopholes, like they also
Yeah.
have these, right?
Yep.
And that's right there. And I know even I have kids, and at their age in elementary school, a lot of the kids have the watches, so parents can track and get in touch with them and whatnot. And we have a lot of students at the high school level with smart watches, so we're not looking to collect watches at this point, but.
Yeah, but just the,
We collect them. We take them.
Talking about, and what's it called? I just wanted to say, I think completely banning phones, to be honest, is very unrealistic. It's not gonna there's gonna be too much pushback. You're just gonna have to deal with then you're just gonna have to deal with students, I think, just like breaking the rules constantly, and I think dealing with that is just a whole other like situation. The teacher that, the students call it a phone jail. I think he calls it a lockup station. But when he uses it, the way it works, if we're having like an assignment in class, like a main assignment that we have to do, he'll ask to like take the phones, and then he'll give them back once our assignment is done, once our main thing is done, once his instruction time is done, so that way we have our phones. If we have to use the bathroom, we can take our phone in case of an emergency. I've noticed that students, like my classmates and I, we actually prefer using it because it keeps us from getting distracted, and that's most of the class. So I think just like implementing, I think in terms of like, I don't think a complete like ban is realistic, but like baby steps like that, I think are a better option.
And I think when it comes to the safety concerns, with all of the other things that are implemented throughout the school, right? All of our doors locked from both ways. We have huge security cameras everywhere. There's security patrolling you always all the time. I think becoming, with those supplemented with the phone concerns, the safety is still a concern, but I think that concern can be mitigated by those policies that are already in place. But I also think it's a good thing, even though there's something inside me saying it's not, but I really do believe it is a good thing to put phones away.
And like, as far as like, I think someone brought up like talking to like your parents during school and stuff. I personally, like the way I do it, like say like I just have a conversation with the teacher quickly and I'm like, okay, I have to stay after school. I think just being able to text my parents really quickly and then putting my phone back, it just works out really well. Because like, say like students aren't driving till their junior year. So getting that ride situation, getting their after school situation like figured out, I think the phones just come in really handy in that sense.
But they can do that in the cafeteria and the gym.
Well, yeah. I like, my only thing is like, for me, it's like, I like to like say lunchtime is over, or say like my mom's like gonna be busy that day. I like to tell her beforehand, like as soon as possible. So like, because lunch you have that half an hour, but it's only once in the day, and then gym you only have one semester. So it's just like that.
So what you're saying is you're comfortable, you're okay with putting the phone away for instructional time, but you want to make sure that you have it on your downtime when you're at lunch or when you're
Or passing in the hall.
Which would be the case, which would
Yeah.
still be the case. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
because I think we're really trying to just ensure that when you're in class time, that you're not being distracted by your phone.
Yeah, yeah.
And then once you leave the classroom, you can get your phone, call your mom, whatever, make plans with her for the end of the day. Or, yeah, no, I understand. There's a lot of communication with family going on during the day. I don't
Can I
know.
just make a suggestion? If you're looking at the policy, I know we keep saying cell phone, cell phone, cell phone. I think we need another term, whether it's Wi-Fi capable, data capable, whatever it is. We were talking about phones. Every student had a flip phone that didn't do anything but make phone calls. We wouldn't be having this conversation. So I think if there's anything looking for policy, which I don't think you need to change the policy because I think we have it covered. But I think cell phones, earbuds, smartwatches, and other devices soon to come that we don't even know what they are, what they're going to look like. I think that's something maybe. I haven't looked at the policy in a while. I just know what we have in our handbook that's worked. And Tim was part of it, and it worked out really well. Tim was helped to do this. So I just think we have to be clear about what we're looking at. Give every kid a flip phone. You won't need one of those because they don't have to make phone calls. It's not what they do with their phones. So, and by the way, every classroom dials out. I know it's a different story. High school's different, but every
Well, now the
classroom
new
dials out.
Verizon phones actually fold and then they become a
Whatever
TV.
they
I'm not
do.
sure if you saw those.
But if
So
they
we're
could
not
only
going
do-
towards flip phones.
I happen to have one in my bag. I can pull it out for you. We have them through the schools.
There's a policy for private technology devices, so I think that's all.
So it covers it, yeah.
Anything else on this?
I just want to thank Peter for orchestrating the, the
Discussion.
gathering of brains and putting it together, so.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter.
We'll give you enough time to get the phone jail back to school.
Yeah, thank you, Katie and Sal. So the last agenda item is just a discussion of open choice program participation. You know, I don't know what Brian has prepared, but I think, you know, if there's specific questions that board members would like answered, I can include that in the other email I'm going to send about questions. But I know that it was asked to have a further discussion about choice and the cost of choice and whether it's worth choice, if I'm not messing that up. But I think, you know, it's worth having this conversation and discussion. But I think if people do not, I don't need it. Oh, you need to. I think if people don't necessarily have their questions and want to like take it in and see if they have other questions, we can, you know, include that with whatever the other thing I said that I was going to include, the board policy, I believe. The calendar, I'm not sure, it's written in my notes. It's been a long meeting. So Brian.
What I distributed you is just a quick overview from the budget document. It looks at what our percentages have been and what they're projected. I do not believe, even though we're projected at a 3.98 for next year, last year we could not fill the positions. If you flip the document over, it shows a trend of how many students are each grade level. So last year, we offered 22 new seats. We were only able to fill, if you look here, to fill the 14. And that being the case, we're really limited with the number of students that are in. And then you can see how, if there's a second grader or a sixth grader, if they have a sibling, that's the only way we'll let anyone other than K or 1 in, is if they have a sibling. So it just shows the numbers. This is what they're projected, the little writing there on the bottom. But what happens is, as you look at the numbers on the bottom, total enrollment, you can see K and 1, double digit. We're only double digit again in 11. So all those years, the numbers diminish, even though we've been going with the same model of only K and 1. Does that see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is students move out of Hartford and no longer become eligible, and they withdraw, and we never gain those numbers back. The other issue we're having now in the last 2 years, and then, you know, obviously not during the pandemic too, is we're not having students that are electing to enroll in Berlin, but they're not electing to enroll in other districts too that are even closer to Hartford or even adjacent to Hartford. It's just the enrollment and choice has gone down for whatever reason. So there's a budgetary impact to choice. I don't know if that's what we want to talk about. When we're at 4%, we're reimbursed $8,000 per student. That reimbursement actually pays for current staff members, not staff members that just work with choice students. They work with our students, they're core content teachers or grade level teachers, or they could be specialists. That's where the funds are used. And the other portion here to look at is that if we fall below 3, we'd only get $4,000 reimbursement. If we're at 3, we get $6,000 reimbursement. And it's not to say we're taking the students just for the funds, but those funds, for the most part, are earmarked towards positions. So that just gives you a quick overview of where the choice program is. I don't know if there's specific questions about the choice program.
Anyone have any questions or comments?
I'm just,
Mid to early 2000s.
Came out of the Chef versus O'Neill case, where there was inequities based on zip codes and so this was one way to try to balance it. It was one of the options.
Yes,
I want to say we've had it for probably 20 years.
okay, I was gonna say.
Yeah, I want to say it's been,
Yeah.
it's been a while.
Okay.
Yeah, we did.
We did the Berlin fair tickets and everything.
Any other questions?
And the other piece is, taking, like last year, 12 seats were filled. We would disperse those students into several K classrooms, so we're not adding another teacher just because we have choice students. So it may add 1 additional student into a classroom or 2 additional students to a classroom, but it's not a preponderance of students that are added. So, any other questions on choice?
So what I'm gonna do is in the email that I send with, send me your questions, I'll also include this because you may have afterthoughts, questions might come up. It's been a long night. We've been here for just about 4 hours. So there's one last item on the agenda. Do we have a motion for consideration? So motion by Adam, second by Peter. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? 8-0, and we have adjourned at 9:26 p.m. Thank you guys for your time. Thank you, Ian and Anusha, for all the cat conversations.